Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Chris, and this is a bit of a weird one for me. Just being on camera. I haven't got my setup. Still in America. Possibly won't be bringing it over to Britain at any point. So, kind of bare bones. Just light off my phone, laptop camera, headphone mic. Not how I like to do things, but hey, it is what it is. Yeah, what I wanted to do was like when I was in America, I didn't really pay that much attention to the Premier League, the Champions League, the Championship, world football in general. I'm very much more immersed in American sports, ice hockey, Colorado Avalanche. So many stories, so much success, but also so much disappointment, but reasons to be exciting and big shocking trades and all sorts of things. That my team, I think that was really my first love over the last decade or so. On top of all that, then American football, the NFL is close behind the NHL for me. My Denver Broncos had some really bad years, but there's always been some reasons to be happy. And last year, we got a quarterback and things went well, and defensive player of the year. A lot of people think the best defense in American football this year, with a quarterback that had a very up and down rookie season, but to be honest with you, he sucked the first two games. He wasn't much of an improvement in weeks 3 or 4. But week 5 to the end of the season, he was actually scarily good. With a little bit better in terms of how to support him and how to play to his strength. So I do think that's going to be a big test this year as we've got this great defense and we've got this young quarterback that looks like he can really do something, and we've added a few pieces around him that should be able to, move the ball and score some points. Big season ahead, maybe, maybe not. A lot of other teams also have improved and look really good. And as is always the way American sports, unless you're the best team or the worst team, you can be anywhere from, you know, anywhere in the middle, realistically. If you're not in the top 2 or 3 worst teams or 2 or 3 best teams, you can be anywhere from 4 to 29 kind of thing out of 32 teams. So there is that, kind of interesting thing. But like I say, I didn't really catch up with football. I watched some highlights. I kept an eye on some results. I watched the departure of Jurgen Klopp. I thought that was a really nice way of doing things. It was a bit of a shock and a sad thing, because I liked Jurgen. I thought he brought some personality. And between him and Pep, there's been some real high quality coaching. And I'm more of a coach than anything else. I'm more of a manager than I'd ever wanted to be a player. I'm probably more of a director of football, um, honestly, than anything else. I like to buy and sell players. I like to organize things. I like to build and see them developed. I'm not really micromanaging tactics or anything too much. I'm definitely more roster focused than match focused. Um, and he did a bit of that. He did a bit of that, but I always like having managers with that personality, with that ability, and that can really, I don't know, bring more than just tactics or man management or media, and just really build a community around themselves, which I think in and outside the club Jurgen did. So it's sad to see him go. But it's also at the same time you have Pep Guardiola, who's built Man City into a powerhouse, backed by a ton of money, sure, but back, you know, they're back. I'm flying, you know, the kind of way you expected them to be when the billionaires took over, and it never really worked out until Mancini had a decent job, I guess. A couple of people had decent jobs, but it's not really until Pep takes over that they become a superpower. And I think that it's been really fun having those two there at the same time, having Emery at Aston Villa and really turning them into a Champions League team and building something. I think that's been fun, but I haven't really dived deep into it. Um, some of the smaller teams then, smaller markets like Brentford, Bournemouth, doing really, really well. Brighton just continuing that conveyor belt of talent, and that's more what I like to do when I play Football Manager and other things like that. I like to buy youngsters, play them for a season or two, sell them for a huge profit, reinvest that into twice, three times the amount of players I've sold, and continue just like growing exponentially that way. I've got great admiration for teams that have done that, like Brighton, who continue to do that. And even though they've just sold another three or four really good players to top teams, and yeah, they don't really look like they're weak anywhere. They look like they found one or two more. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that develops. But you know, we've had those kind of great managers in with clubs doing really good business and sort of mid-table to top eight-ish teams fighting for that eighth spot. Like Nottingham Forest, really, they should have been lower than that. They probably would have expected the first couple of seasons in the Premier League to be more in the 14th to 12th spot, and they probably have been very happy with that. But they've done excellent recruiting, and they found a way that works and the way they play, and they found some talismanic players like Gibbs White and Chris Wood, and overachieving massively, and almost like in the Champions League fight for far too long, where you're looking around like, well, where the supposed big teams, because that's where they should be, and they're not there. And they've opened up that door, and Forest are just like enjoying so much being there. So I feel that's kind of that's been great to watch from afar as well. So you've got all these kind of stories coming through, all these things happening, but I haven't really taken a deep look into day to day, week to week, etc. There's more broad stories. And another thing I've really enjoyed is Arne Slot coming in, because he'll just tell you how he beat you. That's the disrespect is real. I know it's not disrespect, but I'll class it as the disrespect to be able to do that and just be like the Man United game is like, well, yeah, we knew that they pushed their fullbacks up higher, and we know that they tend to do this and they tend to do that. So we did this, and we played this player here, and the idea was to run in behind them here, and we can get at them. And like after the match, post-match interview, and he's saying this stuff, and that wasn't really a huge weakness for United. Teams weren't really beating him a lot that way. And then the opposition manager for a game comes out and says that. And by God, were they targeted in those areas the next few games. And they really suffered. So, yeah, big fan of Slot. I think his substitutions are really good. I think his tactics are really good. And like I say, just the way he thinks about the game and speaks about the game is phenomenal. It's so open, it's so honest. He's not going to lie to you. He's not going to obfuscate anything. He'll just tell you what it is. That's fantastic as well. And we've got a couple of managers like that, and I think Thomas Frank a little more guarded, but he kind of shows you a lot the way he manages and the way he kind of his tactics evolve during a game sometimes. Um, you definitely see his philosophy speak out. Largely, he's got a big move to Tottenham after. Sadly, we lose Ange. I love Ange. I think personality-wise, great. Tactically, not really. And then the unfolding craziness that is Chelsea, that I finally understand why they do what they do and they buy so many players cheap. It's because they're playing the way I play Football Manager. You sign 10 youngsters, bought 10 million each, 100 million outlay. Cool. Not bad. We can do that. In a year, you might sell two or three of those for 20, 30 million each. Okay, you've recouped half to all your money. You still got the other seven. Are they good enough to make the first team? No. Will they ever be? Maybe one, but probably not. Probably not. So what are you going to do? Well, we're going to sell them. So it's a waste of time, right? You bought these 10 players, they go nowhere. Cool. Yeah, but we just sold four of them and we've paid for everybody that we brought in. These next six are pure profit. Now we can build a way around PSR. Now we can build our outgoing sales to 300 million a season and spend half of that or a third of that or less bringing in another 10, which is sustain over the next 3 to 4 years. And that's just, on sales. If you're loaning players out, you're getting that drip feed of money back, and you still have the players to sell next season, the season beyond. You can get $3 million a season for a lot of players on loan. You buy them for 10, you loan them out for 3 years, you earn the money back, and then again, you're pure profit when you sell them. And that's really, I feel, how they're moving around PSR. And I think that's going to be something that a lot more Premier League's clubs might do, because you have to get around those rules and to make it work. The other method is bring a lot of players in very young and have huge academy classes, because you're not paying for those players. Those are all free in terms of PSR. That's all pure profit. And Man City have existed that way. Liam Delap's gone out, and worked his way back to Chelsea. Like, that's another example there. But Man City have done it for the last 3 or 4 years, and they just sell players from their academy, good young players with buyback clauses, sell-on clauses, whatever. But it's pure money. And the one that's worked their way back to them is James Trafford, we saw. He got shipped out to Burnley. He did really, really well. Now all of a sudden, you're paying a decent chunk of change to bring him back, but he's homegrown. And really, you haven't lost that much money on him. You've paid someone to loan him for a few years and get him first team football that you couldn't give him. And now he's turned into a player you can use. He's come back in. I think that's great. Cole Palmer, not so much. There wasn't room for him. He wasn't fitting into the system, and he's not the kind of player that Guardiola likes. So they sell him for 40 million. That's pure profit. That's PSR, pure profit. That's great. He goes to Chelsea, becomes a big success, has a breakout season. That's slightly annoying from their point of view, but they've had players like that, and they've done okay with them. And Phil Foden, sure, anything that Cole Palmer can and has done, we saw young Phil Foden do. But Pep likes people to play rigid, sort of disciplined. You don't have a lot of freedom on or off the ball. Only 1 or 2 players in the team have that. Bill's got it a little bit. Bernardo Silva always had it. Just to drift a little bit. Aguero, when he was there, had a lot more to be able to go sideline to sideline. But you see it again, perfect example of why Palmer wouldn't have worked in that team is because you got Jack Grealish. Jack doesn't want to play the ball back. He doesn't want to retain possession. He's not good at it. He doesn't have quick feet and just lay the ball back and then move 6 feet to move a defender out the way. He wants the ball at his feet. He wants to run. He wants to pass. He wants to clip in little balls over the top, little flicks here, little through ball there, thread the needle, put someone in space. And you're seeing that now at Everton. He's got his move to Everton. I'm delighted for him. I've never been a huge Jack Grealish fan. I always thought he was a little overrated at Villa. I think there was a lot of potential, but I didn't see enough to say 100 million to me. So he got that move to Man City, and I was like, it's a bit rich. And I've seen a couple of Swansea players go to Man City, and that's slightly different, but it doesn't work out because they don't play to the player's strength. You've got to adapt to the Man City style or you're done. And we saw that, and it hasn't worked out. And then Grealish does that for 100 million. I'm like, that's a rich price for a player I don't think I'd pay that for. 65, maybe. Somewhere around there, I think, a little more fair. But they want, they wanted big money, Villa, sure. Man City wanted the player, sure. But I don't know why they wanted the player. Because what Pep turned Grealish into goes against his natural instincts. And you can probably buy a player, a young British player, to do exactly what Jack Grealish was supposed to do in that Man City side for probably 20 to 30 million. Because they're good players and they got some good potential. but they don't have that extra flair and they don't have that extra creativity or that bravery on the ball and the ability to go past people and beat them and the trickery to play in close quarters and unlock a defense like that. But that's not what Pep wanted because he didn't allow Jack Grealish, someone who could do that, to do that. Doku's got free reign to run past people, just dribble down the wing, get the ball into the box. That's it. And Jack doesn't have the pace really to do that. A couple other people have a little bit of creative freedom on the ball. Jack didn't. So why are you buying Grealish? I think stuff like that, very sad to see. But now he's got his move to Everton, and okay, it hasn't gone perfectly, but they got 2 wins. And in both those wins, including the first ever in their new stadium, Grealish has got 2 assists in both. And is really pulling the strings for that side. And they've got some other players. Dewsbury Hall's come in. Beto looks like he's doing okay. And they look solid. But I still don't think they're a great team player for player. I still don't think they're better than a lot of the mid or upper mid-table teams in this league. And it's why they've been struggling a little bit down the bottom end for a while. Because I think they do lack a little bit of quality. And Jack kind of brings that and the ability to really break open a defense or bypass the midfield with 1 or 2 little passes. And I think that's something that's been badly needed. They've had a lot of fight. They've had a lot of big people, strength, a little bit of aggression, power, a little bit of speed. Not a ton of speed on that side, but a little bit of speed. But really defensively sound, can play for set pieces, and that's kind of been Everton. Now they got this little extra bit, and you're seeing the forwards can play if they have that kind of service. If these tight defenses, because a lot of teams are getting a lot better in the Premier League as defenders and midfielders defending, which is why goalkeeping has gone downhill because it's all about them with the ball at their feet rather than shot stoppers or claiming crosses, which is why I just think the standard of goalkeeping across the league has gone downhill a lot. I'm not the only one. That seems to be a popular opinion. If you disagree, let me know, but that's just how I see it. But I think that's got a lot more difficult, which means midfielders need to do a lot more work or just be either really good dribblers or very quick or both. Get in behind them. Otherwise, it's long balls, it's counter-attacks, it's letting the other team play at the back until they make a mistake and closing them down at the right time to either force that mistake or capitalize on it or set pieces. Like, that's how a lot of Premier League teams operate these days because you play the percentages, you play the numbers, you play Pep's game, and you kind of get away with it. You get as many points as you would playing it the other way and maybe even more, but you're also not taking the risks that will win you a ton of games or lose you a ton of games. And so a lot of teams are opting to do that and kind of just... I don't love it. I don't. My team, Swansea, I mean, if you know, you know. And with players like Michu in the team, like we always had that attacking outlet. But we've always been a build from the back, pass your way up, pass sideways, pass backwards kind of team. It's the Swansea way. And it brought us a lot of success in the lower to mid leagues for sure. But it even brought us some pretty good success doing that and playing on the counter against some big teams, like Michu destroying Arsenal along the way too, and beating Valencia in a brief trip to Europe. So it's not something I don't understand or haven't seen or don't know why we play that way, or etc. etc. I know all those things. I don't love it because I've also seen the downsides and just how boring and just pure tactically games can get. And I get that, and there is an element of skill and thought and battle, and it's like there's something to it, and something about that I really appreciate. But it's not why I watch football. I watch football to be entertained. I watch to to see players dribbling past people. My favorite Premier League players, I appreciate players that aren't this type, but my favorites are who can dribble past people, or who's got a great first touch, who's got that killer through ball, who's going to put in that big sliding challenge, who's going to drive a thunderbolt from 25 yards, who's going to hit it off balance on the wrong foot outside of the boot, curling, looping over a defense, 65-yard diagonal to a winger cutting in to put it in the top corner. Like that, those players, I want to see it. Jack Grealish can be that. Every team's got one or two. Cole Palmer is that for Chelsea. There's reasons why these are the big names in their teams. It's because they can do something that other people can't. I want to see more play that way. For me, like looking at teams throughout history, like Thierry Henry, like he just unlocked teams. Cristiano Ronaldo unlocked teams. Brazilian Ronaldo, R9 unlocked teams. Ronaldinho, those are the players I loved. Zlatan up front did it. Love those kind of people. Raul would drop deep into a Pirlo. Oh, I loved Pirlo. Just that kind of midfielder. Xabi Alonso. One of the funnest things I remember watching was that Liverpool team where you had. Oh, yeah, people calling my light, but yeah, no players like say that Liverpool team with Alonso, Mascherano, and Gerrard in midfield as a trio, and then moving up top you had like Suarez in front of Gerrard or Torres, depending on the seasons, and like just that was so fun to watch because you had Mascherano doing a lot of the engine work when Gerrard didn't have to. You had Alonso spraying those 60, 70-yard passes, which means Gerrard didn't have to. And up top, scoring a lot of goals with a Suarez or Torres. He didn't need to be that frontline player. And at times through his career, he'd been all those things. And you just got to see this version of Gerrard where he could really go anywhere and do anything he wanted to do. And he could take over a game, and I love those players. And like everything I love about a player, Gerrard could do those bone-crunching tackles that were fair. He was effective in the air in both boxes. He was an organizer. He was a captain. His passing, even on his left foot, crossfield diagonal, looping balls behind the defense, 70-yard passes, 1-2 touch game, tight quarters. Like it didn't matter. He could do all of it, and he could shoot from distance. He could shoot up close. He could do little 1-2s into the box and just slot it home. You could do set pieces. He was good on free kicks, good on corners, just all action, all round midfielder. And I love that version of him in that kind of midfield with that kind of support. And I was thinking about it, and the reason probably I think, because I've always rated Gerrard as better than Lampard and Scholes because he could do all aspects. Lampard's a better goal scorer, better forward attacking midfield number 10 than Gerrard. The numbers don't lie. Scholes is a better passer and technical ability footballer than Gerrard and Lampard. So Lampard's the best at going forward, Scholes is the best all round, and probably Gerrard's the best all round on the defensive side. But I don't feel that Scholes had the engine that the other two had. I don't think that Lampard had the defensive ability. Okay, Scholes fouled a lot. He was late with a lot of challenges. But like the innate defensive ability the other two had, like Lampard was missing. But Gerrard had what the others were strong at. And I think that to me is kind of what made him the better midfielder and the more exciting to watch, because no matter where it is on the pitch, whether the team's playing badly or well, whether there's they're behind, whether they're ahead, home, away, against a League Two team, against a team much better than them, first minute, 90th minute, whether he has to play right back, left wing, striker, Like he played a bunch of positions to cover, and he still did well. And he dismantled West Ham in a cup final. The Gerrard final is a thing, and Liverpool were kind of struggling at times in that game, and he took it over and he won the FA Cup. And Milan, Istanbul, 3-0 up at halftime. What a great Milan side, by the way. Just, Kaka. Again, another person that I love to watch. Just unlock defenses. And at the back, someone like Maldini, just that Rolls Royce, just thinking so far ahead of you that it doesn't matter that I can't run. It doesn't matter that I'm not super, super strong. I'm there. I've got the ball. I've played it out. And you can't do anything. Just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. But like I say, in that final, it's Gerrard, when all heads are falling, that gets something. And he drives. And that leadership and that passion, that boyhood club. And yeah. So it's those kind of players I think we're missing. Ryan Giggs running down the wing. The goal in the FA Cup against Arsenal. Like, even to lesser degrees, um, like Robert Pires at Arsenal, Freddie Ljungberg, Eden Hazard, those wingers, those attacking midfielders, those all actions, the marauding fullbacks. Just I kind of miss those kind of players that we just don't really see that much these days. We really don't see that much these days. So, yeah, I think tactically, teams are getting a lot better defensively, but that also is because they're not taking risks. So when I see a risk taker or a creative player that is able to unlock those defenses, I'm very much more interested in seeing them play. Even if I don't like them in particular or like the team that they play for, I'm still going to be giving them a hell of a lot more credit for doing that. And Cole Palmer seems to be one of those where the game's just not too big for him because he just at some level doesn't care. It's a game of football, and that's all it is. And he treats it that way. Like, yeah, it's a game of football. I'm paid to play football, so I play football. Like, why would I panic? Okay, I've got the world's best defensive midfielder on me, Rodri. Okay, I got Gravenberch close me down. Okay, I got a strong fullback coming at me. Leaning low. I got Kukurea draped all over me. It's sad that he's probably one of the best left backs in the Premier League right now because I don't think he's that good. But like Calafiori, big towering person, I'm draped all over me, and oh no, what am I gonna do? No, like he doesn't care because he's just playing football, and it ain't that big, it ain't that deep, you know. That's it, at some level, it would infuriate me as a manager, but it's what makes him great. It's what makes him great. And I think he needs that. Another player I think's got that to a lesser degree is Kobe Mainu, who going through a tough time at United, but who isn't at United? Oh my god. There's a storyline. Like, oh my god. Like growing up watching the Ferguson era, even the early years, like you could see something there and just had some great, great players. And they always bought at their strength like Liverpool have done right now. They've gone and won the league and they've just spent on some big players and some like superb quality players. They're after even more. Transfer deadline day is tomorrow. We're going to see if they can get the final two over the line. But that's what United did. They went and bought the best player in the league every single year to strengthen. And it works. And like to see United go from the best run club to the most commercially successful club, the most dominant team for a large period of time, and the most successful on-field club, both in terms of domestic and Europe for a period, and doing it, bringing in players from the youth academy of the class of '96, and sustaining that with some just top-notch signings along the way. And every time they lost someone big name and they'd be able to bring in someone else. I'm not sure where that went wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's it begins and ends with the name Glazers, really, for me. Um, but yeah, after when Moyes comes in and he's handpicked by Fergie, and you think, okay, that might be something that works out. It might be a little down, but it'll be okay. And he does a good job. He doesn't do a great job, but I don't think he was the right fit, and I don't think he adjusted from the way they did things at Everton to the way they do things at United. And I don't think the United boys were willing to cut their egos and come down to his level and kind of understand what he wanted and do the things he wanted them to do, play the way he wanted them to play, etc. either. So I think there's just too much big of a gap. But how sad is it then you look back at all the managers that have come after, and he's got one of the better records, if not the best records of everybody since Fergie, still to this day. Like, that's nuts to me. And some top notch managers that have won an absolute ton. And like that United team just hasn't improved and doesn't look good. And they got some good players and some players I think in other teams that would thrive. But it's just not working. And it's not working from the top down. And Old Trafford, the theatre of dreams that they built through the years, it's falling apart and they don't have the money to repair it. And like, I could not have imagined a team that was that big, that dominant, on and off the pitch, commercially, competitively, in the transfer markets, both in and out, with the youth academy, with recruitment, with scouting, just top to bottom, the best in Britain, possibly Europe, to where they're at now. And Ruben Amorim, 29 games, 28 points, is that right? Because it sure doesn't sound right, but it is. And like, how? I don't get that. Um, that's just gross mismanagement over decades, which I'm not a huge United fan, I never was, but I always respected what they did and the way they did things and who they were. And even if I didn't like some of their players, like I respected their abilities and what they kind of stood for and the way they did things. Um, what a travesty that is for English football. It's opened up the door. Man City have come in and taken advantage of that. Liverpool are coming back into their own. Arteta, I'm not convinced about, but at least he's definitely solved a lot of Arsenal's weaknesses at the back. I just don't, again, a little too Pep-like in that you're stifling the creativity of your forward players. And I will bring that to today because I did watch live the Liverpool Arsenal game. Last 200% teams in the league. Arsenal hadn't been scored on all season. Liverpool looked really shaky at the back and especially on set pieces. And Arsenal very much, the best team on set pieces this year. And early on, it did seem like Arsenal were determined to follow the Newcastle blueprint. You know, every 50-50 ball, they were in strong. And they'd leave a little extra, and I don't love it, but I understand it. It's part of the game. I wish it wouldn't, but that's by the by. Just little niggles, little leaning, and the referee was letting things go. That's fine. You let things go. You let the game sort of play out. That's fine. Let the players play the game and don't get too involved. But I did see it at that points in that first half where I felt similar challenges done by Liverpool were called way quicker, or the ones by Arsenal just weren't called at all in the first half. I thought that was kind of interesting that they were favouring the more aggressive team and the away team, or like whatever the reasoning for it, or whether it's subconscious, I don't know. Whether the view the referee had or the information he was getting was different, I don't know. But that's kind of how it appeared to me, and I was like, okay, And there's a couple of challenges that I didn't like from Arsenal players, kind of like arms going over the shoulder and round the face. I don't think there's any place for that in football. I don't ever think that your arm should be over the shoulder and round the face of another player to kind of grapple them and push them out the way. No. If you can't move them out the way without coming up and over the shoulder or round the neck or face of a player, you have no right to that ball. You need to hold your position and defend your position rather than throwing a player out the way to get it. Referee let a couple of those goals. Like, okay, Liverpool do it. They give away a freak. I'm like, eh. Couple of things. Gravenberch as well, tracking back, clips the heel of Arsenal's counter attack. Instantly gets a yellow card. I think a little harsh, but like a cynical foul. I kind of get it. But he hadn't done anything before that, really. He hadn't really kicked anyone, done anything to have a warning from the ref. I thought, nah, a little harsh. And then I did see Zubamendi and like scythe through someone. Not really scythe, not dangerous, but didn't get the ball. You know, leg went through the mid shins of a player. And it's a free kick, but there's no yellow card. And it's like, well, defensive midfielder on one team to stop a counter attack barely clips the heel of a player. It's not dangerous. It's not malicious. You know, he's trying a little too much and he just gets too close to the player and trips him up. Plenty of defenders in the way, not a goal scoring opportunity, not really that dangerous. A little closer to goal, I guess, than the other one. But the exact same scenario then with what I see as a worse challenge by Zubamendi. It doesn't get booked, and I'm like, okay. I'm not really sure what the rest looking at or the way he's seeing the game, but I thought we could see this turn into another Newcastle game where that aggression starts to spill over. And luckily it didn't, and everybody kept their emotion in check. And I do think Anthony Gordon kind of played the occasion, not the game to a certain degree. And his comments after the game kind of lead me to believe that as well. But, you know, that kind of by the by, but I did feel that was developing, and I don't want to see that. I don't want to see every team attack Liverpool by fouling and kicking them for 90 minutes and then just going long ball and set piece against them. Because I don't think that's how you beat them. I really don't. Early on, I saw Madueke, who I'm surprised went to Arsenal. I'm surprised they wanted him. I don't think he did much at Chelsea to kind of showcase his talents. Maybe this is the right club. Maybe it's the right move. And he did quite well today. But 2 or 3 times as well, he squared up to Kirkez after a 50-50. And it's like he was trying to bully Kirkez because Kirkez has a smaller frame or something. I don't know. But I don't feel that Kirkez is going to shirk from that. He's not going to boil over and get aggressive back. You're not going to bait the yellow card out of him. He's going to give away a yellow card because he's out of position and he's overreaching. That's how Kirkez is going to get booked. He's not going to get mad and push you or go through the back of you. You're not going to bait him. And yeah, you're bigger than him, you're stronger than him, you're faster than him, you can beat him one-on-one down the line. You can do all these things. But he always got back in a position, and Madueke only once did he, and not long before he went off actually, once he got a clear ball past him and into the box. Every other time Kirkez was there. I think Kirkez needed that game because the first couple of games was sketchy for him. Same with Konate, a good game, sadly went off injured after a couple of shaky games. So it's interesting to see that. But like after that Newcastle game, like Bournemouth, I think, showed how to beat Liverpool. Pace on the counter-attack, go down the wings. And don't get too clever. Attack them down the flanks. Stay out wide. Beat them, and as soon as you've beat them, put that ball in the box whether someone's there or not. That's how you beat Liverpool. They might win that first ball, but you might win the second one and get a chance of a shot on goal. You've got to make those counts. And then, yes, set pieces, if your delivery is better than Arsenal's was today, like Newcastle have shown that. A good set piece delivery or a long ball can get you a long way with them. So I think like the game plan of how to beat them's there. I don't think you're going to intimidate them. You're not going to intimidate Wirtz, even though he is the kind of player and the style of player I think most people would expect to intimidate. And like I also saw a couple of people square up and kind of like try and stare down McAllister, and I'm sorry, but that wrong target. He don't care. Same as Kirk, short of frame, he don't care. Kanate's not going to care. Van Dijk's not going to care. Gyökeres went in late on him, same as Anthony Gordon did. Far less dangerous of a challenge. Um, but again, kind of just the small little rake on the ankle, back or the side of the ankle, I think it was. Um, Nowhere near as bad as Anthony Gordon. He got booked for it. That's fair. Everything's okay. Don't think it was malicious or anything. Um, he was just late and I think not having a great game. And having watched him at Swansea, I've seen him have those games a lot where all he's got is a bit of strength and you're waiting to do something. And I don't know if he has it in him. He didn't when he was with us at that level. He went to Coventry and later proved he did have it at that level. He went to Sporting and proved he had it at a higher level. Now he's in the Premier League. He's got to prove he's got it at this level. 2 goals against Leeds doesn't really impress me too much. The 2 away games, he doesn't look like he's got it yet. But he did go in on Van Dijk, but Van Dijk kind of shrugged that off. Joe Gomez, I thought, another one maybe you think you can bully. Like, he wasn't fussed. Szoboszlai playing right back, man of the match, rightly so. Kind of a Gerrard light for me. Pure energy, little bit of leadership, the fight, that tenacity, good tackler, good in the air, long range passing, close control, can shoot from distance, bit of set pieces, like those kind of all action midfielders. Like he is that. He doesn't have anything at the top end level that Gerrard did, but there's a lot of similarities. And I love the fact he's wearing number 8 because it just highlights that. And the free kick today was sublime, but he was the best player on the pitch for me, even without that goal. So rightly so. But you're not going to bully that back line. And like I say, McAllister, you're not going to bully him. Gravenberch, you're not going to bully him. Gakpo, you're not going to bully him. And some of the touches that boy takes, I think, is so underrated because the control over a football, the acceleration to get up to pace when he's isolating a defender and driving inside to shoot, the power he generates from absolutely nothing is sometimes scary. And I think that got Liverpool out of trouble a lot today. Because on the other wing, you're not going to intimidate Salah either. But like he was very quiet. Ekatike, I think, was just starved of service, and that's kudos to Arsenal for doing that, especially going down a defender early. First look at Mosquera, I like him a lot. Gabriel just continues to be that bulldog at the back, which I like a lot. I think you do need that. Timber, a little over complained he went down a lot under no challenge. But when he was challenging someone, he was like very aggressive and physical. And I think if you're dishing it out, you've got to be able to take it. So it's the only thing I don't like about him. If he didn't complain as much, or if he didn't go down as easily, I think this is what I'm on Arsenal as a whole, and Newcastle as a whole as well, having watched these 2 games, is if they didn't do that as much, I think they'd have a lot more success, both personally as players and collectively as a team. And I really hope they get that because I want to see all teams playing to the best of their abilities, and I'd love seeing the best in the world do what they do well. But yeah, I think it was such a tough tactical battle. I think Arteta summed it up really well at the end, where he said that both teams elevated their game to such a high level, and there wasn't anything between the team. You couldn't separate both teams, and the only way a winner's going to come is an individual mistake or an individual moment of brilliance, and we had the latter. And I fully agree with him that that's how the game was. I thought for 60 minutes, very, very tight, nervy, kind of couple of mistakes at the back from both teams. Couple of mistakes up front, overhit passes, underhit passes. players not reading where the ball was going, so not making the runs when the midfielder or fullback plays it. I did feel that Liverpool were very much more pinning their fullbacks back early on, not allowing Kirkes to go. Second half, you definitely saw him step up. And I swear, for a period of the game, even though he was right back, Szoboszlai was playing centre mid for a good 5-10 minute period. So it definitely changed second half, but I did feel Slot wanted them more compact, more rigid, and it really worked out in containing Madueke very well. Don't think Martinelli did too much. So much pace, he got past Szoboszlai a couple of times really early. But I think to exploit Liverpool, you need to attack the flanks. And every time Calafiori went forward on the left and Timber went forward on the right, they might play it out to the winger and then get the ball back, but they always wanted to come inside. They always wanted to play the ball inside, and Declan Rice was coming close to either of them. And when he got it, he wanted to kind of pass it out to the wing sometimes, but usually back out to the fullback or inside again, and just I don't know why Arsenal wanted to funnel through the middle. I don't really understand that, because I don't think that's how you beat this Liverpool team. And I think Arsenal have the quality to not have to do that. And they do have the talent out wide. And they did bring on Eze, and they could have, they could have really attacked on the flanks, especially after Gravenberch was booked. I think he was mainly going out and covering right midfield to kind of pick up Calafiori. And then he couldn't as much because he was on a booking. He got to be careful. Yeah, so Calafiori, get that ball down. Use your massive frame to hold him off and your pace to get past him. Isolate Dom Szoboszlai one-on-one with Martinelli and let Martinelli go. Because the fair play to Kirkes, he was beaten 7 or 8 times. But 6 or 7 of those times, he got back and blocked the cross, blocked the shot, etc. Even being wrestled in the box when there was a really good chance for Arsenal was breaking down, just by, the edge of the 6-yard box, really. And there's a player all over his back, and we did see against Newcastle for the goal, like he kind of leant forward and let the player climb over him and get the goal. Bruno, I think, for the goal. Arsenal tried that on him today, and he just kind of stood up, walked 2 spaces, fell over by the goal line, just swiping at the ball with his legs slightly, just to keep it away from an Arsenal player and keep it just in play to where Alisson could dive on it. As good as Madueke was, he wasn't beating Kirkes. And Calafiori was getting forward a lot more than Timber with a lot less issue and going up against a booked player. And you're going up against Dominic Szoboszlai, who's not a right back. Why isn't that the game plan? Why not capitalize on that? Why not realize that I'm pushed on that side? I'm not sure. And if you don't trust Martinelli to do it, then fine. But Eze will do that. Why wasn't he brought on earlier? Why wasn't he starting? Why didn't you isolate that position properly, especially on the back of that Gravenberch yellow card? I don't get it. And I think for me, again, Arteta, as well as being a bit too Pep-like and not allowing players to be as free-roaming up front and creative up front, and being a little too rigid to help the team defensively, which Arsenal are the best at, but I think that gives you leeway going forward that they're not taking advantage of. I think tactically, he doesn't spot these things, or if he does spot them, he doesn't capitalize on them, and his substitutions sometimes aren't the best. And so I think there's a big chance today for Arsenal. Once again, didn't play great at United, didn't play great away to Liverpool. They celebrated a 2-2 draw against Man City, if you remember that game. You've got to win against your rivals. If you want the title, you've got to beat the rivals, and you've got to beat them away from home. You've got to go to big clubs and get results. Not draws, but wins. And Liverpool have done it. They've picked up a couple of titles. Chelsea now and again have done it. They kind of played their way back into contention on the back of a few big results last season as well, after being, like I say, behind teams like Nottingham Forest for a while. very impressive end to the season from them. And then, you got Man City, who always can go away from home against a big team. And you know that they do have that pure attacking talent to do it. And if not, they've got Erling Haaland to batter you into submission and just flick his foot out and snatch a goal without having to work that hard for it. The rest of the team works really hard, and Haaland can just do what he does best, an absolute nightmare and flick in. And I think that's what Arsenal are really hoping to do with Gyökeres. But you've got to allow them a little more freedom or get better attacking threats than Arsenal have. Now, I'm not sure Gyökeres is in that same league as Haaland at manhandling two 6'4" defenders and being able to get half a step clear and be able to get his shot off quickly enough to get it in the back of the net. So, yeah. First look at Arsenal in big games this year. Yeah, they smashed Leeds, but it's a promoted side. Leeds are good. They're not great at the Premier League level. And I don't think that says anything. Gyökeres' 2 goals don't say much to me. Man United, you struggled and you limped across the line, and I'm not convinced. Today against Liverpool, much better. But game plan was wrong. Didn't adjust it. Didn't isolate the fullbacks. Didn't make the most out of Madueke, who looked like he was the Arsenal player who wanted it as much. Wanted it more than anyone else. Didn't do the same with Eze on the left when he came on. And the players that probably had the most opportunities on the ball to like really unlock Liverpool, I say were probably Timber, Calafiori, who always came inside, and Declan Rice, who looked like he wanted to do something, but nobody was in a position for him to play. Now, Liverpool set up well and denied those opportunities, but if Declan Rice is your best creative player, and recently that's kind of what he's becoming, he's moved more from a defensive midfielder to a box-to-box. I know he's adding a lot more kind of in the final third to his game, or showcasing it more maybe, because he's always had that little bit about him. And I love Declan Rice. I think he's a fantastic midfield player. But yeah, if he's looking like he wants to play, and he's looking like he wants to become that Gerrard type, I can tackle, I can run, I can play the ball with both feet, I can split you with a pass on a through ball, I can hit the diagonals, I'm good in the air, I'm strong, I see the game really well in front of me, I can shoot from deep, I can take corners and free kicks. Like, he is building into that kind of player. And if he's on the same trajectory as I think he's on, and he can win some stuff, then I think he starts entering that conversation. I really do. And people might not agree, but I don't care. I really like Deck. But when you've got him and he's got the ball and it's 0-0, and you're looking at the game and you're pinning Liverpool back in their half minute after minute after minute. He's on the ball, he's taking it, he's come close to Calafiori, he's taken it, and he's got 3 or 4 seconds, not really being closed down. And he's doing little movements. He's taking a step forward and a step to the right, and he's looking, he's scanning, he's touching the ball, and he's cutting back to the byline, and he's looking back, he's turning back towards his own goal, and he's taking a couple of steps, and like finally there's enough pressure on where he's got to play the ball back to the centre back. I feel really sorry for him. Like, nobody was open, and yeah, Liverpool are doing a good job, like setting their lines and everything, but as a forward player, when you've got Martinelli, when you've got Eze, when you've got Madueke, when you've got Odegaard after he came on, when you've got Timber, who has the pace and power to cut inside and drive on a diagonal towards the box, and nobody's making a run, nobody's taking a chance, nobody's breaking their shape, because Arteta wants you in that shape, so if you lose the ball, you're solid defensively because you're not leaving a Liverpool player open. But you're not trying to win the game. You're trying not to lose the game. And Liverpool did the same thing for 60 minutes. and then they started trying to win the game. And they had a couple of good opportunities. Again, the final balls weren't great. We haven't seen Wirtz yet do anything special. Salah looks a little lackluster early on this season with his 2 goals, 2 assists, I think it is, which is just testament to the quality of the player. But I don't think we've seen anything great out of him. And up front, Gakpo had to come back a lot because Timber was pushing up a lot and Rice was kind of marauding around. And like I say, some just outrageous touches and flicking balls over people and close control from him. Didn't really see him more in an attacking, driving threat, but he was good, not great. So up front, all you really have is Hugo Ekitike, who has got goals, seems to get into space, and has an outrageous close range touch. And he fought off so many players 1-on-1 or 2-on-1 and held off players bigger and stronger and far more experienced than him. I think we didn't see the goals today, but we saw such a different side of him as to like he could play attacking midfield. He could play as a number 10. Like he's playing that midfield role kind of like a McAllister or Szoboszlai. Like he could do that. And then just the bit I really liked, why I'm falling in love with Hugo Ekitike as a player. The little back heels, the little flicks and the tricks, they're coming in. This is a young kid who didn't have the best of times at PSG, had superstars ahead of him, who went to Germany, who exploded with a bunch of goals. And now he's at Liverpool. He scored a few goals. The nerves are gone. He fully understands. And the game isn't moving too quick for him. It's moving too quick for Wirtz right now. At some point, it's going to slow down. We're going to see the best of Florian Wirtz. I fully believe it. And we're starting to see signs of it. But it's just not there yet. And he needs more games. You're going to have to carry him in a few more games. Maybe as much as another couple of months. And then maybe second half of the season he kicks on. I don't know how or where or when it's going to come together. But I do feel it's going to come together. Ekitike doesn't have that issue. He doesn't. He's confident, he's smiling, he's laughing, he's enjoying football. And at some level, we go back to that Cole Palmer element of, I'm just playing football. That's it. Like Cole Palmer's very nonchalant about it, very aloof about it, and he's kind of self-amused. He's a lot like me personality-wise in that way, not overly fussed showing our emotions, not overly bothered by anything. I was always told that if I was any more laid back, I'd be horizontal. I think that perfectly fits him. I think you see the same from an Ekitike, but it's very much more just joyful. Where he's just not worried about anything. These cheeky little flicks coming in now. It's just like, yeah, this kid's high on confidence. He's scoring goals. He's involved in build-up play. He's happy to track back. He's happy to sprint 60 yards to close down a goalkeeper or a defender and putting them under pressure. And he won a throw in the second half just by pressuring somebody. You won another one just by jumping up against Timber. Yeah, I'm really excited to see what he does. It's going to be really interesting if they get Isak, because I don't know exactly how you play Ekitike. Do you play it with him? Do you play it off him? Do you rotate? Do you have Ekitike out at the left wing at sometimes and rest Gakpo? And sort of between the four of them, are you rotating through 3 positions? Striker, left wing, and number 10, attacking mid. Like those 3 positions, are you rotating Isak and Ekitike, Isak and Isak can play out left, but really Ekitike and Gakpo and Ekitike and Wirtz. Like, is Ekitike just rotating in all 3 positions, covering from them? Is he playing out left wing and sometimes Gakpo going up top? Is he dropping into number 10 and Florian Wirtz playing up top if he's got more room there? Like, I don't know. I think that's a very interesting dynamic. And Mark Gahey, another former Swansea loanee, who credits us with, really opening his eyes to professional footballing, sort of ins and outs, and really making a man out of him, and making him the player that he needed to be at that stage to grow into what he became. Um, and I got nothing but love for him, both as a footballer and now because of those comments as a player. Like him at the back, covering with Kanate, maybe even allowing you to go to a back three. You know, Gay, Verge, and Kanate, and then allowing you to have wing backs of Frimpong and Kirkes, Gravenberg to cover, and then either Ekatike, Verts, or McAllister, or Sabozlai, or Curtis Jones as a midfielder number 10, kind of in that kind of setup, maybe? I don't know. Maybe Ekatike and Isak up front, and then maybe Verts or Gakpo off the left-hand side, and Salah off the right-hand side, and Chiesa off the bench. And if they get those two, it's with the start they've had, overcoming Newcastle away in a heated atmosphere, scoring the first goal past Arsenal this season and ending their 100% run, and seemingly solving their tactically defensive weaknesses from the first two games in this, although Arsenal just didn't test them in that way, and I think that's a mistake. And especially with Kirkes having the game he had after the first two, and Kanate the first real performance. Sadly, that little leg injury looks like, maybe not that serious, but yeah, like he had a very good game, which he needed after a couple of poor opening performances. And they're winning, and they're beating these big teams in tough games. The scary game against Bournemouth, and fair play to Semenyo, he has that comment from the crowd, doesn't let it get to him in the moment, gets down, plays football, plays the game the right way. I think he was a little overly aggressive, a little too foully, a little complainy before that. And I don't think it was working for him, because he had the speed, the strength, and the talent to get past Kirkesh at will, and he wasn't really. And I think all those other things were kind of coming into it. And then after the incident, I think maybe it did shake him a little bit. And the upside was the player we got post-incident was much better. He wasn't doing the sneaky little fouls. He wasn't trying to wrestle Kirkes to the ground. He just concentrated on finding a little bit of space, getting up to speed, attacking the fullbacks, cutting inside what he wanted. He got 2 goals and just showed the blueprint to beating this Liverpool team. And I'm very interested to see who's equipped to do that. I think Arsenal with Saka could be, especially if they got Saka and Eze out wide and they play out wide. But really, who else is built down the wings that way? Who else really could? And if Liverpool get Marquet and go to a back five, can you still do that? I don't know. So I think the title race is going to be very interesting, because Man City lost again today. Like, they didn't look great, but again, a typical Haaland goal, flickering in. Things look okay, but they don't look quite right to me yet with Man City. And a lot of people are talking as well. I've heard this said a couple of different places, that the winning team's going to score 100 points or more. It's going to be record breaking. There might be a couple of teams with like 90 to 95 points this year, because everyone's so good. But I think everyone is so good. When we've had teams with 95 to 100 points, the bottom half of the table has been bad. I don't think United and Spurs are going to have as bad a seasons as they did last season. I don't think they can have great seasons. I don't have them top 8, probably. Maybe just below that. Especially Spurs, since they seem to right to the ship, and United still have Onana in goal and Amorim as manager, which neither one is working. So yeah, I think they're not going to be as bad. So some of the points they gave up aren't going to be there. And I do think you had some really bad teams down at the bottom. Whereas this year, the 2 worst teams for me over the course of preseason, the first couple of games were West Ham and Wolves. West Ham with a big win today. They kind of get themselves out of trouble, sure. Everton, who've been poor, are kind of climbing out of that. Wolves, yeah, they still look pretty bad. They might be the worst team in the league this year with the 3 promoted teams. But I don't know if any are going to be as bad as Southampton were. I don't know if any are going to be as bad as Ipswich were at times. At terms of just like getting points. Not bad as in playing, because I think Ipswich are pretty good at times. But yeah, so I don't think the bottom half of the table is as weak as it has been. I think they're going to steal a few more points. And those mid-table teams, which now include teams like Everton, Man United, and Tottenham, and Nottingham Forest for a while, and Villa and Newcastle, anyone like outside of those true Champions League fighting positions over the past 3 to 4 years, or that have been flirting with those positions over the past 3 to 4 years. And right now, my top 4 would be Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, and Chelsea. So anyone outside of those. Yeah, they're all kind of improved. Newcastle might take a step back, but Eddie Howe, I love him. I think the rest of the team's good. I think if they'd have done their business properly up front, they wouldn't have lost out on Ekatike, and you would have made, even if you sell Isak for 110 million, I know you don't want to, but you sell him for 110 million, you spend 70 of that on Hugo Ekatike, you've pocketed 40 million, you got 5 years younger, and you still got a very good attacking player who kind of looks like Alexander Isak did when you bought him. Why not just go throw extra money at Ekatike and make sure he doesn't choose Liverpool, rather than try and hold on to Isak when you offered him 300 grand a week and promised him, then that person got sacked. But still, as a club, you offered him 300 grand a week and promised it to him, and you didn't give it to him, and he's pissed. And you lied to him, and you broke your promise. He hasn't reacted well. Liverpool have been kind of sought out as the villains in this piece for putting a bid in on a player. A bid that's unhappy and wants to leave another club. I don't get why Liverpool are vilified by Newcastle fans for it. They haven't settled the player at all. You did that yourselves. Pay him 300 grand a week when he asks for it. None of this comes up. Get a replacement in early enough, you're not having to scramble. But I think right at the deadline, they've got one in. They might get another one in. I don't think they'll be as good without Isak, but I don't think there's a huge drop-off, so I don't think there's points to be gained there. You know, your West Hams look okay. Like I say, Everton, Moyes has really steadied the ship. He knows how to manage that club. He knows the style of football. He knows the fan base. He knows kind of what it takes in that sort of mid-table fight to stay away from relegation and just push up a little more and towards those European places. What he's really good at. It's why United was the wrong fit for him, because he's not done that before, and it didn't work out then. So I think again with Everton, it's the right size of club, it's the right type of club, it's the right kind of fan base, it's the right kind of tactic and footballing identity for the players you have and the players you can get. And so we've seen this steady progression under Moyes, and now with Grealish, I think that makes them drop a whole lot less points. Forest is just going to continue to be difficult to beat, and they have had people like Alanga and Gibbs White that unlock defenses and are those attacking players to unlock those defenses. You've got Chris Wood, who is that big battering ram, tough striker who can get half a yard and just slot a ball home. Can also hit with power from deep as well and is good in the air, but really, you know, it's another Haaland and what Arsenal think Gyökeres will be for them. Like, different quality levels, different teams, different expectations, etc. But basically, that's all they do. An old-fashioned number 9, an Alan Shearer, another one, perfect example of that kind of mold I'm talking about when I mention those kind of players. So I don't think really in the lower end or the middle of that, the Premier League, that you're going to get too many points, and then, you know, Brentford have been good. Maybe they drop off, especially now if they lose Visser as well. Bournemouth, just I don't know why someone hasn't bought Semenyo off them. Brighton, I don't know why someone hasn't bought Mitoma off them. I think those two are phenomenal players that should be at bigger clubs and should be like a Champions League teams and trophy chasing teams. They've done really well to keep hold of them and make their money elsewhere. But again, I don't see them being much worse. And again, Brighton good win today. I think, yeah, they're not dropping off either. So there's no points to be gained from those kind of teams. And Villa and Brighton and Bournemouth and Forest, Newcastle, United, Tottenham. Like, who's having worse seasons? And Chelsea were kind of a soft touch in the first half of last season. So are Man City. They're not going to be. So they're going to be on more points, sure. But that also means then that Liverpool and Arsenal aren't taking those points off them as easily. And the teams around them aren't taking the points off of them as easily. We might have more of a title fight. Might have a 3-way, 4-way title fight. Might have a really good, like 7, 8, 9-team Champions League fight. I don't think we're going to have two teams pushing 95 points plus. The rest of the league is too good. The gulf isn't between the top 4 and 14th through 17th. The gulf is between 16th and 17th, really, most seasons. And in reality, it's always between 17th and the 3 promoted teams who have tended to go back down. So I don't buy into it. I think we're going to have a much more competitive league this season. I don't see a team running away with it unless teams are just dropping points they shouldn't be. If Man City don't improve from what I've seen early season, it's going to be a long, hard year for them again. Not as bad. Rodri coming off a big injury. I don't know. Marmouche, Salvinho, etc. Like, I'm not really convinced yet with them. I know they're very good players and potentially could be world class. I get it. I just haven't seen it in a Man City shirt, and I'm not convinced that Pep's going to give them the freedom they need to get there. Chelsea, I feel more bullish on an improvement from last season. I still don't see them in a title fight, but I think they'll come closer again. Uh, and I think they take that. It's another year of learning for people at the back, like Levi Colwill, who I think will end up being a great player. But yeah, I think a lot of their players need a year or two to kind of grow in, and I think just steady improvement over the next couple of seasons, they might be back in the mix. Villa have sold a lot. They might be losing Emi Martinez to Man United, which would be great for United. It'd be pretty bad for Villa. Palace as well, another team that have lost so much over the last couple of seasons and might end up losing more. Like I say, Mark Gahey might be going. They just lost Eze. They lost, I can't remember his name, Bayern Munich. It'll come to me later. There's also rumours now as well that Liverpool are ready to put 100 million on Adam Wharton, which would also be a big profit, but a big loss there. They have recruited quite well. I think they continue to do so, and they won't drop off much. I just don't think we see the improvement of a Palace that maybe we would expect otherwise. But yeah, Mateta, probably my third name of why hasn't anyone big come in for him. I don't know. I don't understand. I think a big club could come in for all three. Matoma on the left, Semenyo on the right, Mateta up top. I think, yeah, if you're going to drop big money, you can get all three of those instead of getting one huge player and really provide a lot of competition and cover and rotation options and even starter level. Like, depending on what you got. Like a Newcastle, I think, should be looking at that. Sell Isak for 130, then go and try and split that between a a Mateta Oh my God, yeah, a Semenyo and a Mitoma. You might have to pay a little extra on top, but I think that would work out for Newcastle. So I'm kind of surprised that those are there. And like I say, I think Parks will be fine as long as they kind of have him and Glashner looks good and again adds a little bit of something to the league like Thomas Frank did at Brentford, where an underappreciated club now gets a manager with a little bit about them and starts imposing his identity on the club, a little Jurgen Klopp-esque as well. Like that was what he did at Liverpool and Frank did at Brentford, and now Glasner seems to be doing at Palace a little bit. Um, that usually ends up quite well when the players buy in, the fans buy in, and they're supported by the board. Like it's a recipe for success. Maybe limited success, maybe lower level, but like just success. So intriguing to see how they'll rebound back if they do lose Gahey as a. I still can't remember the other. Olise. I was going to say I couldn't remember, but Olise at Bayern Munich. And then Adam as well, defensive midfield, did well at the Euros for England, limited minutes, but kind of showcases what he can be. And again, like a young Declan Rice a little bit, starts off more defensive, but you can see big frame, tall, solid, good in the air, can kind of play both feet. He might develop alongside that similar pathway to Rice, and that might work out. So during maybe rumors of 100 million to him to Liverpool, I haven't seen anything substantiated, but it wouldn't really surprise me. And Liverpool have sold so much they can afford to spend big and still drop 250 million and be perfectly fine for PSR. Same with Chelsea. I think are they up to like 250 or 300 million in outgoing sales this season, so they can spend crazily. But offloading your assets really important. I think Newcastle are trying to hold on to theirs, and I understand it. But I think you need to, and then you need to really spend big to replace. And that's where Villa fail, where they've sold their assets, and I don't really feel they spent well enough to replace. Um, so it's a tricky balance, but if you do it, and Chelsea are doing it really well right now, Liverpool are doing it fairly well right now. United are doing it where they spend their money up front and then don't get anything back for their players. That's totally wrong. Um, that's why they're going backwards. But I don't know, just an intriguing season. So I wanted to touch on that. And like I say early on, I think my two big standout early players of the preseason, Rio Ungamoa for Liverpool, young 17-year-old, just fearless at that age. Young Raheem Sterling like, but with more production and not just pace, which looking back was probably more of what Sterling had more than anything else. Owen also had a lot of pace when he came through at Liverpool, so I can make that kind of comparison. Slightly, I remember that one. But there was a little more to Owen than just pace. There was like great balance and an excellent first touch, which I don't think Sterling really had either. I think Rio's got that, and just again I'll bring it back to disrespect. The disrespect to not care who I'm going up against, and I'm just gonna try a trick and go past you. I don't care. I'm 17. I don't care you've won a World Cup. I don't care that you've won Champions. I don't give a damn. I think that's key. My other one, Max Dowman, on the opposite flank, his good friend, 15-year-old. I think he turned 16 not too long in the future, but yeah, still very young. And even if he is 16 soon, like him at 16, Rio at 17, could be future England wingers. Could really be exciting there for the future, and both of them in the Premier League. And like I say, players I like, they want to take someone on and do something. I gotta say, I think I see the hype with Dome, and I see what he could be, and he's so young that yes, it's right to be excited about him, but I do feel you need to pump the brakes a little more than with Rio. Rio's a couple of years older, a little further along, and I think showing a little bit more at this stage, which you would and should expect. And again, I'm not saying this to be down on Dowman, I do think he came on against Liverpool, and it's tough. But Kirkes has been beaten all game and like barely got back to block every single time. Like I say, he was only beaten once by Madueke. But Dolman went at him 3 times. Kirkes got back to block barely once. The other 2 times, he just it was a man against a boy when he took the ball off Dolman. And I think that's kind of either he hesitated too much or he just physically doesn't quite have the frame yet at that young age. Both are 100% understandable. I know people, especially Arsenal fans, might get pissed at me for like framing it that way, but that's what happened. I'm sorry, that is what happened. And so I don't think we can really know what we're getting yet. But I think it's really exciting and feeding minutes, but also I think a cup game here or there against a championship team or maybe a League One team. I think if you go up against someone overly physical, they will frankly just bully him. And I don't think that'll be something he'll deal well with to the point where you're not aiding his development or confidence. But I think a couple of cup games like that, I think you'll get him used to the pace of the game. Let him train with the first team, but really let him play under 21s at this young age. I don't think I don't think I'd quite have him in the first team, especially not for a title contender, as Arsenal should be. And I don't think you need him when you've got Trossard, Martinelli, Eze, Saka as your kind of big four wingers. You've got Wanyeri, you've got Erdegaard. Like, yeah, I don't think you need to include him as much as people are starting to say. So I think we're getting a little carried away on that, but I see the future. I think Tottenham have got 3 or 4 very good youngsters as well. Bergval, probably the highlight, but a couple of really nice youngsters for sure there too. And again, I'd be a little careful blooding them into the team. I think with Ngaboa, probably the similar development path, more cup games, but like cameos in the Premier League, I think fit him and Bergval better than most of the others because I think they're a little more advanced in their game right now. And also, I don't worry about Bergval. He is a little older, but I don't worry about Bergval physically. I think he's ready physically. It's like when Michael Owen first came through, or when Pennant came through, or when Milner. Well, not so. Milner had a little bit about him when he came through as a youngster. But when some of those players come through at a young age, you know they don't have the physicality to really cope, and they're really basing themselves off pace or technique. They don't have physicality yet. I think those are the players you need to be worried about a little more. And Ingemore, there is that worry to him. Not quite as much, but there is that to him. I'd like to see him get a bit stronger, and a couple of those Spurs youngsters and a couple of I think Chelsea got a couple. I know they bought in a couple of Brazilians, and I think they need their frames filled out a little bit more to kind of cope with it, to get more regular game time. But then, especially when you get to someone like I say, Berg, yeah, his name's completely gone out of my head now. Swedish midfielder for Spurs, Berg. I'm going to start calling him Henning Berg because that's what my brain is telling me his name is, and he ain't no Henning Berg. Bergveld, yeah, sure. Like I said, he has that physicality to him where I don't think he's going to outpower too many people, but he's not going to get bullied. So you can be more first team player with him. I think Spurs have to be because I don't love what else they've got in that midfield. I do think he offers something that little bit of drive, that little bit of arrogance that some of their other midfielders either don't have enough of or have too much of, that don't really set them up well for success. So yeah, I think that's an interesting one. But Rio, there's something about him, and got to be really careful not to overexpose him or to put him in situations where he is up against an overly physical team um, at a time where they can isolate him and potentially injure him because, yeah, he hasn't finished growing yet, and he is going to be kind of a little fragile, maybe. A lot of young players are, so I think a little worry there, but like I say, him and Dowman for the future, I think, so bright and so good. But yeah, I don't think there's like the next Rooney coming through where he might have been 16, 15 when he was breaking into Everton, and then when he got his move to United, but like he didn't look like a child. He didn't look like a child. Odegaard as well had a little bit of size about him. Didn't have a lot of muscle, but coming through as a 15-year-old and going to Real Madrid, I always felt there was a little something about him. Um, um, yeah, I gotta look up his name because it's annoying me. Bergval. It is Bergval. My brain was saying stuff like Bergveld and Bergvon, and yeah, Bergval. I think again is a lot more like Odegaard than Rooney in his frame, but like yeah, there is a little something to him, and yeah, he's like 18, 19, so you're gonna expect that from him. But I think there are these players at a lot of the big clubs. There's a couple that have been breaking through, and like Gibbs White's now a little older again, but he's come into his own. Alanga, like, was he going to do anything or not? I don't know, but a very promising youngster that we hadn't seen enough from. And then he's kind of got his chance at Forest and the showcase, and leads to good things, as you see. Um, Madueke again, like, is that the right club? Wanieri as well. Lewis Skelly as well, further back the pitch, totally different kind of player. A lot of these are attacking players and midfield players, wingers sort of players, but like Lewis Skelly, I think you've got to be very careful of. It's a disrespect in his game too, in that he doesn't care who's coming at him. He's just going to play football and defend, and I love that. He also gets forward quite well, but again, I think he's not quite at the level people are talking about him at, I feel. And there's a lot more to come from him. And I think a little more patience with some of these players is going to be needed than respective fan bases are going to want to show. And I fully understand it. I'm not trying to be a killjoy, but ultimately what I want is to protect these players a little so that they can develop into the talents that I think and many others think they can be. And they should be. And I think in general, teams are recruiting really well, and there aren't as many kind of youngsters, like highly promising youngsters, that fall off. They seem to be attaining a higher level, even if their natural ability isn't as high and they're not going to be world beaters. They're not being the best youth player at a top four club in the Premier League and getting released at the end of their youth contract and going to non-league or down to League One or Two. That's not happening as much anymore. And Swansea had that back in the day, early 2000s, when West Ham released Leon Britton for being too small. He came down on loan to us, and we got him on a free off them later. And Alan Tate was Man United's reserve captain and was highly promising and thought of. He comes on loan, ends up joining us permanently on a free. Like, those days, I don't think the real top teams are losing players like that anymore. They're kind of finding big moves abroad, like Tyler Morton for Liverpool. He's got a solid move and he can go and play and do his things. I really want to see more of that because I think a lot of talent kind of goes to waste. And I think it's because they're getting bad advice or surrounded by bad people, or they're just not educated enough on the life of a footballer and professionalism and taking care of yourself. And I think American sports does that a lot better, and I think teams are starting to do that a lot more and evolving that process. But I want to see more of it. So it's not that I'm skeptical on these players and like Max Dowman. Certainly don't want to rain this parade and Mikey Moore and um, et cetera, et cetera. But I just don't want to see them fail. I want them to become the best versions of themselves over the years, no matter who they play for. Even if they end up at Cardiff. I don't want that for them either. Because that's not a good place right now. I mean, they're top of League One, but they went down to League One, so sorry, Cardiff fans, if you're watching. I don't know why you would be. Most of you don't seem to like me. For good reason, maybe, but still. Yeah. I think I just want to see these players succeed. I want them to be Rooney's. I want them to be Michael Owens, even though with his injuries and the way his career ended. Like, Owen was voted the best player in the world, the best young player in the world, and like he hit ridiculous heights. Rooney was a phenomenal player from start to finish. Um, but like him and Owen, like those are the young players of promise at 16, 17 coming into their sides and like the fan base gets really excited. I want Dalman to be that for Arsenal. I want Wanyeri to be that for Arsenal. I want Lewis Skelly to be that for Arsenal. I wanted Garnacho to be the cheap pickup that stays in the academy and does something for Man United. I want Kobe Mainu to be that for United. Looks like maybe he's going to be sold, and I get it from a tactical point of view. I get it from his point of view because it's not a great place to be right now either, and you kind of want to be in that England side when you've got Declan Rice and Adam Wharton and Phil Foden and Cole Palmer and Jude Bellingham and there's a lot really. There's a lot with other names that we meant. Like there's only so many spots, and you're trying to tie one down. United's probably not the club to be at to prove that you deserve that. I feel for Kobe as well. He might have to move to get where he wants to be, and I don't know. I don't know if that's in the Premier League. I'm trying to think. Like Arsenal would love him, but I don't think there's a spot. Chelsea would love him. That might make some sense, but is that realistically the move to make? Go to a Newcastle or Villa, sure, but I honestly think he's ready for clubs further up than that. Man City, I don't think would play to his strengths. I would hate to see that because that's another Grealish kind of candidacy ready to be replicated. I don't want to see that. Liverpool, I think would fit very well style of play, but United, Liverpool, I don't know. And then you look at that midfield again. It's Gravenberch, Neoni coming through. You don't want to block his pathway. Um, McAllister, Szoboszlai, and Wirtz. Plus, will they stay? Will they go? But Harvey Elliott, Curtis Jones. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where I see him if he's not at United. So it might have to be a move away, which has worked for players like Scott McTominay, 100%. Rashford's got a good move out to Barcelona too. So that might be the pathway. But I want to see the best Kobe Mainu we can. I want at the end of his career to be talking about him like Roy Keane, Paul Scholes, Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard, Patrick Vieira, like Makalele, Essien, just who are the giants of centre midfielders in the Premier League? Like his name could and probably should be there. He's got the talent. He's that young, but he's already that good. And I don't think what he's good at is something you're going to lose over age. I think he sees the game quickly. He spots pace. He's tactically very switched on. He knows where to go in certain situations. He drives with the ball. He's got that hunger. He doesn't have top end speed that he loses and suddenly becomes a worse player. He doesn't have like massive strength that he's going to lose as he gets older and his game goes downhill. It's a lot of intelligence, mental side of the game, and it's a lot of technique. And you don't really lose that as you age. So I don't see the same kind of caps on his ceiling as I see from other players either. I want to see the best version of him. I don't want Ravel Morrison. I, I don't want that. And like, I fear for him because I don't think he fits United. He's going to have a high price tag, which limits the clubs he can go to. Those clubs already have great players in those positions, and none of them really have a hole in centre midfield for me. I do think Chelsea maybe is the one that could accommodate him, but even then, they're like, not really. Um, I don't know. I don't know. But like I say, these young players need to be given a chance. They need to be going at them. But also at the same time, like I say, I want Mateta to get a move to a big club. I want Mitoma to get a move to a big club. And I want Semenyo to get a move to a big club because I think their game will evolve more. They'll become better players. They'll get paid more and maybe win some trophies, which are going to be difficult to be had at the clubs that they're currently at. And I think the money they'll generate for those clubs will be really good in terms of them being able to reinvest and replace. So I don't think it's a bad move for anyone. But yeah, there's been a lot of players bought and sold this season, but I still foresee so much more. And I think it's a very exciting season. So yeah, the few things that I've seen, like I say, I've watched Liverpool all three games this year. I've watched United, Arsenal. I've watched a couple of City's games, and again, one they look good, one they look bad. Watched the United game for Arsenal. Watched not full games, but watched a lot of Chelsea over the Club World Cup. So I kind of feel I know a lot about Chelsea at this point, kind of where they're at and where they're weak. Um, Sadly, I think they lost Delap again, so now Jackson isn't going out on loan to Bayern Munich, but he might still be sold permanently, so they're looking at someone else to bring in. So that striker carousel, as weak a market as it is at striker these days, there could be some movement. I don't know what it is. I don't know if Osimhen's available or not, but that could just be someone to bring in. But like, I don't know. But I kind of like what Chelsea are doing, the way they're building. They're just not quite there yet. So I watched them a couple of times. Brighton a couple of times. So I'm trying to spread some game time around. I've seen very little of Spurs, but they just seem to be efficient and consistent, and everything that Ange wasn't. So should bode well for their future, especially if Richarlison's scoring and playing well, because he doesn't typically do either. So yeah, I feel fairly good about them and bullish on them. The promoted sides I haven't really looked at much either. We'll kind of see what that looks like over the course of the season a little more. But Everton, like I say, I've watched a bit of Everton and like the way they're set up and so on. So yeah, top to bottom, I think the focus has really been on Liverpool early on with the Isaac deal and then playing Newcastle away. Also having the season opener against Bournemouth as champions, that the spotlight's on you there. It then moves to the Newcastle game, spotlight's on you there, and then the spotlight game of week 3. You're playing against Arsenal, the 200% teams, not two unbeaten, 200% teams, the two title favourites going head to head. So I think it's easier to kind of watch Liverpool and get excited about Liverpool when all the spotlight's been on them for all these games. I hope that kind of changes and we see a little more of teams like Sunderland get the spotlight. Because, again, the clips I've seen there, I've got a lot of love for Sunderland. I've got, a lot of sympathy for them. They were run really badly. very much like Swansea back in the day. Almost, they tumbled down the divisions. We almost tumbled out the league. And then that slow rebuild and fight back and getting finances under control. And then that fairly rapid ascent that we had and they've now had. Um, I think a big club that had fallen on tough times. Leeds, very similar, actually. Good to see them back up. Not doing as well as Sunderland so far, but not much worse, to be fair to them. Um, I think they got a win, a draw, and a loss, and Sunderland have got two wins and a losses, if I'm not correct. So not much in it, but fine margins. But to see clubs like that, former big clubs who have struggled for a long time and have come back up and may establish themselves, I think that'll be really interesting with the promoted clubs this year because Burnley aren't that. But they didn't play the right way the last time they were up. I think they were kind of naive and thought their championship style of football was going to work in the Premier League. It didn't. They've rebuilt a little. They're playing a little differently. We'll see how it works out. Not a great start for them, but like I say, I do worry for Leeds. They might go down because don't I don't think there's enough physicality or team defending. I don't mind their defenders or goalkeepers. I just don't think their defensive shape is going to be good. They're going to be a little too counter-attack, a little too attacky. That's kind of what they're built for. And I'm not sure that's really going to work that well in the Premier League as it does in the Championship. And it's kind of what Burnley did. You overplay a little bit for the level you're in when you get that promotion. And fair play to them. They want to give it a go, and they might stay up doing it. Kudos to them. Fair play. A lot of former Swans in that Leeds team too. I'd love to see those players do well, but I do worry about it. I don't think they're quite set up. Sunderland, I think there's a bit more feistiness and bite about them that might get them there, but I do feel Leeds are a little Southampton-y from last season, and Sunderland a little more Ipswichy. Don't know if that's good for either of them. I just don't know with Burnley yet. I'd still have those three probably going down and worry over Wolves because it hasn't been the best start. And I don't know, it looks a little panicky there. They've lost a lot of players over the years. I don't know if the players they brought in are ready to replace them right now. So I'm a little worried there. Bournemouth have lost a lot, but they're replacing well, and they still got Semenyo. They still got some goal threats. Still good in net and tough to break down in midfield. So I think they might be okay. Brentford, I think their biggest loss is going to end up being Thomas Frank. How well they cope with that and adjust to that, I think, is going to dictate their season. But I don't know if I have them down the bottom. Who else is down the bottom right now? Like Newcastle will come good. If they sell Isak and just buy a couple of players, if they sold Isak a month ago and bought in a couple of players, they'd be fine right now and they wouldn't be where they're at. And they probably wouldn't have Anthony Gordon on a red card. And I get you're trying to get the most of your money, but you created a bad situation with the player. The player reacted badly to it. Nobody's in the right. Liverpool came in and made a bid. They're definitely not in the wrong. I just think you do your business earlier in the window and you don't leave it late, especially with a player that doesn't trust you and doesn't want to play for you. You lied to him point blank, period. He don't want to be there so much that he's not training and he don't want to play and he refuses to stay at the club. Why are you waiting until the last day of the window to get that business done? You're trying to get his replacement in early. Okay, but if you did that, and let's say Newcastle did spend that money and it puts them way over PSR, and then the deal with Liverpool doesn't get done, and he doesn't go anywhere else before this transfer window shuts. Now, Newcastle, over the next 6 months, need to sell £150 million worth of players to make up that deficit. Or you could sell the player, be over 100 million in profit on your PSR, and have a month to get those players in. Bruno's really good. Tonali's really good. Gordon's really good. Like they've got a couple of others now. They started bringing in more. Like I think their attack's really good. At the back, they're robust. They're difficult to break down. Dan Burn personifies them. There's no flash. There's no like outrageous on the ball skill. We're big. We're strong. We're tall. We can tackle. We can head. We can pass a little bit, but we don't mind lumping it long. We got so many runners out wide in the midfield to go get that ball. You know, we can get some big bodies up front that are going to bring that ball down. Like, we can play this way. We're absolutely fine. And we're going to be an absolute nightmare to play week in, week out. And if you win, you're going to have gone through a war to get it. Nothing wrong with that at all. But they are lacking stuff. And they need money to go do that. And they're really tight on PSR, and it's what stopped them from getting Mark Gahey. I don't understand their position on Isak. The only way to act like you've done with Isak is if you haven't lied to him about a new contract of an extra 100 grand a week. Because if you haven't lied to him, he's not creating a get out. And then you can probably delay and get through the transfer window and like he's not that unhappy. He didn't get his move, but he's not that unhappy. We'll talk at the end of the season. We'll let you go at the end of the season. Okay, that's fine. I'm playing. Get a better season out of him. I don't get it. So they're right down near the bottom, and yeah, that's just a bad situation. West Ham, before their win today, I would have said we're in big trouble and needed to have a hell of a transfer deadline day. I think they still need to attack it because there's going to be more bad days than good. But today did show. I mean, they had a penalty. They had a quick little goal. We got it out of his feet. I think Bowen just drove it inside near post. And then they kind of had a cross and was it a cross and header, I think, for the third goal. So not only did they score 3 late goals and show that tenacity, but they were good enough at the back not to concede against, tough opponents. They scored 3 goals, and they also scored in 3 different ways. And I think that's really good. A ball outside the box that got drove in. That tight quarter play where they get that penalty and they dispatch that, send the goalkeeper the wrong way, showing good composure and nerve there. And then, like I say, that ball down the wing, cross in, header. So scoring 3 different ways, I think, really will help them out. But I'm just checking my computer battery is low, so I'm going to have to plug that in soon. Fulham, I think they'll be fine. It's a really bad start for them. They need to get better. Villa, they lose Emi Martinez with the start they've had. You may start to worry for them a little bit, but probably not to get relegated, right? Wolves worry me. Fulham maybe a touch. And yeah, maybe Newcastle a little more too. Okay, that's plugged in now. So yeah, I mean, I don't worry about Newcastle going down. I worry about them regressing, I guess. Same with Villa. But like Fulham need to address some stuff. West Ham need to address some stuff. If they don't, I fear they could get pulled into a relegation fight. I think Wolves are kind of worrying enough to where I think they might just be in one all season. Say Brentford, if they don't move on from Frank well enough, that might be an issue. Burnley, Leeds, definitely threats to go down. Man City a poor start, but they shouldn't be anywhere near it. Same with Brighton, Forest. United, unless things go even worse for them. Then we're up to 8th with Palace, who I think are in for a good season. Bournemouth. Sunderland and Everton are off to a hot start. I don't think that continues. I think they both regress. I think Sunderland maybe ending like 15th, 16th, 17th, maybe. They've got the best chance for me out of the promoted teams, but it's still very early to call that, and a lot can change, and January transfer window can definitely change that. And Everton probably fall back into the 8th, ninth, 10th place for me by the end of the season. But like I say, I love what Moyes is doing there, and right manager, right club, right players, and getting in just the one signing that I think unlocks everybody you've brought in before. It unlocks Beto and it unlocks Ndai especially, and that is Jack Grealish. That's phenomenal. Um, and yeah, Frank at Spurs doing good. They're probably not going to finish top four, but they're going to be very competitive. Arsenal will rebound back from this loss, but they need to unlock their creativity as well moving forward, because if they don't, they're just going to be king of the draws, because there's teams that are going to defend as well as they do playing against them. Two sides head to head being defensive means you're not going to get much done. You're not going to win games. You might not lose games, but play to win. Don't play to not lose. Chelsea, I do think, have had a good start and will have a good season. And Liverpool, like I say, still my title favourites. I've seen the most of them. I followed them the most in the transfer window because they had a lot of big business early. And I think other teams have had great business towards the back end of the window, but Liverpool still kind of steal that highlight right now. And with Gahey and Isak and maybe even Wharton coming in, that's maybe they steal the end of the transfer window too. We'll find out tomorrow. But they've also had the best start with tricky fixtures. And one thing that I'd forgotten to mention of why I admire Liverpool so much right now is they're doing it all on the back of the tragedy of losing Diego Jota. And I don't care what you think, it has an effect. It does, week in, week out, those players. And it's not a one-off thing. It's not something we forget about after week 1, week 2, week 3. The fans aren't forgetting about it and they're singing. That's one thing. But the teammates and the friends of Jota are going to be feeling it every single game this season. It's not going to go away. It is going to affect them. It is going to be in the back of their mind. It is going to be affecting their emotions. It's going to distract them slightly. And we've already seen it after the Bournemouth game where, Salah, at the end of the game, the fans are singing Diego Jota's song and he's there just applauding them in tears. And you can see it is having that effect. And it adds a dimension to things. It really does. I don't know how much you can even get that under control. That might just sit with you. And it's not a dynamic I want to see. It's not a dynamic I think anyone should have to deal with. But it is there and it is going to play its part. And I was really impressed by Liverpool today, putting their defensive issues from the Charity Shield or Community Shield against Palace in the first game against Bournemouth, and the way they let Newcastle come back at them. They had defensive frailties, and like I say, I highlighted Konate because he's not been great. I highlighted Kirkes because he's been very weak and not really showing the strength he does have. And today, Liverpool defensively, as a collective unit, were phenomenal. So were Arsenal, but I think Liverpool were a little better than Arsenal in that way. Because I think Arsenal lost a little bit of it when they did come forward a little later on, and they were playing long ball, so they were pushing more people up, so they didn't have that shape, which Liverpool kind of exploited towards the end of the game after the goal. So that does play into it, but I do think that even when Liverpool went 1-0 up and were playing more attacking from like the hour mark onwards, they didn't lose that defensive shape. Even when your right back's playing left wing and Szoboszlai's gone on one of his runs and is trying to affect the game, Liverpool still didn't lose that shape. So I think they did slightly better on that. So collectively, that's something they fixed. And very much so individually, Kanate, great game from him. Um, his best game all season by an absolute mile. And like I say, Kirkes, I think, I say, beaten so many times, and then to come back and get the recovery challenging, get the block, get that little corner, just yeah, phenomenal. And all under the weight of this emotional atmosphere where you've lost a teammate. Really tough in that first game against Bournemouth. You felt it a ton more, but it's still having an effect now. But to go from that and then the racial abuse of Semenyo during that Bournemouth game, and that adding another dimension and another distraction mentally in that game, and to give up another 2-0 lead after losing to Palace by giving up a lead to them. Um, I think that's really tough. Then you throw into the next game, and it's the Isak saga, and Liverpool are the big villains for some reason. Newcastle fans figure it out. Like, it's nothing to do with Liverpool. It's what the player was promised, and your club didn't deliver. Um, that's the story. That's the two sides in this story. It's not Liverpool, and the atmosphere was always going to be brutal for that. So you got the Jota thing being played over by the Isaac thing, and just emotions must have been crazy for some of those Liverpool players on the pitch, especially the more emotional ones like Mo Salah. I can only imagine like what was going through his head and distracting him in that game, and I feel for him. I really do. I can't even imagine it, but I feel for him, knowing what that must have been like. Um, yeah, supercharged atmosphere, and then you go to week 3, and it's like, well, we got through the opener, and it was very crazy and like charged emotionally, and like the full tribute to Jota and his family then and everything. Like we get from that and we go to Newcastle, and it's an even more emotional and like hyper tense fixture, and like week 3 we can relax. No, we can't. We got Arsenal, and like they come and they start kicking and nudging and making it uncomfortable play and not allowing you time on the ball and closing down well and attacking your fullbacks, and like they're big and they're strong and they're well organized, and they're a set piece threat, and you defend well, but by defending well, you're giving throw-ins and corners, and yeah, for periods you're under pressure, and again, all with still this underlying emotion from Jota's death, kind of playing its part in the mind of some of these Liverpool players, or most of these Liverpool players. What a brutal 3 weeks, and they've come out to it with 3 wins, playing their best defensive performance with players like Sabozlai coming out with a metric ton of praise, not just from this game, but from the other two as well. And I'm playing it right back against, in the two biggest of those 3 games, and the two most difficult physical battles. Um, like, yeah, just, it's been an absolutely amazing story. And like I say, the Jota thing will not go away. We got transfer deadline day and the Isak thing and the Gay thing, maybe even the Wharton thing. If they come through, like it adds even another layer of quality, depth, rotational play, fatigue management for cup games and whatnot. You can definitely play a second 11, and it's still a second 11 that could probably get into Europe in the Premier League, like in a top 6 or 7 place, as well as your first team being title challengers or winners kind of level. Like it's kind of crazy with all that level, but also then positionally, and if you really want to free up Frimpong and Kirkesh, you can do that by bringing in Mark Gahey and playing a back 3, because you've got 3 great quality centre backs with a Joe Gomez as cover. and a Leone now as cover. So yeah, you do have those 5 centre-backs you need for a back three. It's I think the story of Liverpool's season is going to continue to unfold, and especially while they're still top and they're still unbeaten, still 100%, and they've come through 3 very difficult games for very different reasons. And they are top and they are champions and they deserve that respect. I want to see other teams challenge. I want to see other teams really put them under pressure because I want this to be a fight at the end of the season for a title. 2 or 3 teams going into the final 2 days of the season. That's what I want. And if Liverpool come through a really tough part of the season, with Salah being underwhelming, Gakpo not doing a ton in some of these games either, Verts looking like the game's a little too fast for him, McAllister not a full fitness, limited minutes for other people, Gravenberch coming off an injury, a little knock, niggle here and there. Kirkes starting with 2 pretty bad games. Kanate starting with 2 bad games. And Frimpong being benched in favour of Szoboszlai at right back in the first 2 games. And they haven't played well and they've come through it and they've done this. It's like, well, if they get those 2 players and they get everything, are they going to be unstoppable? Do Arsenal have the creativity and will Arteta allow them to use that creativity? Because the answer is yes. But will he allow them to use it? Will he unlock the door and let Eze, Odegaard, and Saka be the creative geniuses that they all can be? Will he let them do it? I don't know. You got your battering ram up front to create space for those 3. I think you should. Marino, Zubamendi can sit. Calafiori and Timber good going up and down the flanks. Saliba, Gabriel really good at the back. And Reyes been Golden Glove for 2 years. You set defensively, unlock the attack, let them go, let them win you games. Yeah, it's frustrating me. I'm not even an Arsenal fan. It must be frustrating for you guys to watch being a striker away for 3-4 years and getting that striker and now your creative players not really being allowed to create much. Frustrating as hell, I'm sure. Man City, are they back? Can they get back? Who knows? Are they still dependent on Haaland right now because they're not as good at goalkeeper they used to be? Their defense doesn't look as stable. Rodri, is he the same player when he comes back? Are they wingers any more than just pace with a little bit of trickery? I don't know yet. A lot of question marks there. A lot of question marks there. Tottenham, how far in their recovery are they? Is this the real deal now, what we're seeing early on from Frank? I don't know. Big questions to be answered. I still think they're a player or 2 short from really being where they could be. I'm interested to see where they're at. Their first 11, I think, is very, very good. Sad to say, they need a striker. I don't know. Everybody needs a striker at some point. But, I'm not sure who that could be, but I feel they do need that. But they're not that far away from being a top 6/top 4 side consistently again, I think. It's if what Frank wants to do works out, if the players are on board, I do feel he can kind of galvanize them. And Moyes has galvanized Everton, and how good can they be? How much does Grealish bring to unlock the talents of Abeto and Endai, especially up front? What's that look like? So, yeah, I want to see some of these teams up and in amongst the mix. I want to see Forest back up there. I want to see United a lot higher up the table. I want to see Brighton taking a run at it. I want to see Bournemouth taking a run at it. Palace taking a run at it. Even if you lose again, Eze, Gahey, maybe even Wharton again. I still think if you recruit well enough, that the core of that team is still good enough with a couple of replacement players. It's good enough. And if it isn't good enough, go talk to Chelsea, go talk to Man City, because they be selling good young players. Just go and talk to them and get someone you like in different positions, because it's probably going to work out in your favor for at least 2 or 3 years, and then you'll make a profit back off them. So, yeah, why not go do that? But, yeah, I don't know. Early season, I'd say narrative is all about Liverpool. I've seen a ton of Liverpool stuff. My favorite manager in the league is Slot. It's close. It's close between him and Emery, but I think that Arne Slot's he's been booked. He's been backed by his board a lot more, and that's going to tell. And I think it's going to come a point where there's only so much Emery can do at Villa without replacing the phenomenal players that they've already sold and continue to probably sell. So, yeah, best manager, the best early transfer window, the biggest signing, the current champions. Sadly, the Jota through point underlying everything. The Isak saga on top of it. And then the racial abuse against Semenyo in their opener. The Isak war, where Anthony Gordon played the occasion, not the game. And Newcastle were trying to bully Liverpool, and that's not how you beat this team. And then that all or nothing against Arsenal, where it's just an hour of two great defensive, making some mistakes, but being pretty damn great for the best part of an hour. And then being able to kind of threaten them. So I even think when both teams were fully defensive, Arsenal had the better attacks. But when Liverpool went to attack, Arsenal looked a little shaky at the back. And when Arsenal went long ball and threw everyone forward and really put Liverpool under pressure for 4 or 5 minutes at a time, Liverpool still didn't really look shaky at the back at all. I found that really interesting. So, like I say, those three games all have their points. The Jota bit, Isak bit, the even Palace beating them in the Community Shield, I think, was another pretty big story in that mix. So yeah, with the transfer window, highlight transfer player. Liverpool's story so far. Who's going to take it off them? Have your say in the comment section down below. But I think the Premier League is back and it's bustling. Just underneath in the Championship, Swansea are doing well. Got to talk about Swansea for a brief moment, but I think our transfer policy has finally kind of been resuscitated. We've had good players. We've had very good players in the past 3 or 4 years. And we've let them go on freeze and we sold them quite cheaply, and it's been maddening to see. And no replacements have come in. There's been little free transfers here and there and little loan deals, and trying to do everything on the cheap and letting players use us as a bargaining tool with a club they really want to go to. And I hated it. I've absolutely hated it. But now I feel like we've got an unspectacular but good goalkeeper in Vigouroux. I think Josh Key and Josh Tymon at fullback are two of the best fullbacks in the league when they're 100% and when they're at their best. Problem being they're not always there. Burgess had some nice things at the back, some experience as well. Did well for Ipswich and comes in for us. A bit of a blow for Ipswich to lose him, really. Even though he wasn't a first team player week in, week out, I think that's still big. Cabango alongside him, I think, is very good for the division. And then a new midfield, Franco, either side of former Man United youngster Ethan Galbraith, who went down the leagues to, I think, League Two, and has worked his way back up and is now in the Championship of Swansea. He looks a very good player. Vidal over from Sweden, Melker Vidal. We bought him last season. He stayed out there on loan and come in this year. I think that's a great three-man midfield for the division. We've got Yom and Ronald out wide, and we bought in Inusa for like 6 million. And then up top, Liam Cullen was more of a false nine or a number 10 for me than a striker. And yeah, Jan Vipotnik, or Zan Vipotnik, who's like 3-3, and there's rumours we might be selling him. We might be getting £7 million Adamida from Celtic, although they're waiting to get someone in, and the club that they're trying to buy from is waiting to get someone in. So there's a little blockage, a little like transfer link going on where when player A moves, then B can move, then C can move, and then finally D can move, and we get our man. But not a bad start. We're playing better. The board is better than it has been. American owners have been pretty bad for us. But twice I think we've kind of refreshed our director of football and etc. etc. All the technical directors and the high level board members. The money men I think have been switched out at this point. New investors have come in, but the same board, and then different chairmen, like promotions from within the board have happened. It does finally feel like we've got the right people in those high level positions to where it filters down and doesn't interfere anymore. And we are getting stuff done. So a good start, not a bad start. Still think we're mid-table to possible playoffs. We don't have the punching power financially, physically, or squad depth-wise of teams higher up in the league. We definitely don't have the merchandising or sponsorship side done yet. We desperately need to get better at that. But I don't know. I think a good season, a reason to be positive, possible playoffs. I feel fairly good about where we are for the first time in 5 years, where it's just like blind optimism. Now there's reasons to be optimistic, for sure. And then the other big story, I think, in the championship for me is just Birmingham and Wrexham coming up and spending big money because they're making big money. They've got flashy owners that can attract a lot more sponsorship, and that's what they've done. And I think as much as I admire what Chelsea have done in buying a lot of young players and stashing them, loaning them out and getting a little bit of money in, and then, like I say, selling for big money so that they can like skirt PSR like nobody's business, it's great. Like, it's not great for those players maybe, but also they are getting high level football, higher wages than they would have before their moves, and they're getting expert coaching and whatnot. There are benefits from going to a bigger club. So, and then you go out on loan and you're still getting paid really well and still know you've got the coaching and medical side of a big club, if you need them, but you're also getting first team football for the team you're on loan. And then use that as a shop window to get your actual move to where you're kind of set up at a higher level than where you started. So it's not that bad. It can be bad if it's not done right, like a Danny Drinkwater kind of situation, or a Steve Sidwell situation, 100% more. Sidwell should be the example I use there, 100%. Yeah, it just doesn't feel like you're ever going to get played and you're not being bought for the right reasons. So, but like they've done things really, really well in that way. And they're using their resources to your full capabilities at that stage. Tottenham are really good and well run off the pitch and with like events in the stadium or not. And Daniel Levy's done a great job with them in that way and has backed the managers in the transfer market. Just maybe that side of things hasn't been the best, and they're a little a little hesitant to spend really big on a player that is worth it and go for maybe the second or third on what you'd want on the list, what you want. Um, but they're like really well run there. Brentford and Bournemouth are really good at bringing in bargains. Brighton really good at bringing in um, just foreign players from their scouting network that you don't know much about or that nobody else is willing to take a risk on. And really, that's been Red Bull's strategy through, you know, just funneling people into FC Liefering. I don't know how to pronounce it, but like a really small team, I think in the third division of Austrian football. And then they feed those up the chain to Red Bull Salzburg in the top division of Austrian football and give them a place to play. And then from there, they can move them on further, either to other big clubs and make their profit, or onto RB Leipzig and have them playing at the highest level in that chain. And they got other teams like I think FC Brazil, I think it's RB Brazil maybe. They got a New York team. I think they got the New York Red Bulls, um, and a couple of others. I'm not really sure. Well, I think they had one in Ghana, they had one in China, or maybe they had academies there. But they're funneling all these players in from around the world into basically FC Red Bull Salzburg and RB Leipzig and giving them the platform. And it feels like Brighton are doing it just as a solo club. They're not really relying on any other clubs and outside. They're just scouting like crazy, probably hiring more scouts than anyone else and paying big wages to get better scouts than you'd expect at a club their size. And they're just doing a really good job on the analytics side of things, bringing in people and finding value there. So you've got all these clubs kind of doing well. And then I think the other side of it, which you don't see in the Premier League, but we've seen, especially from Wrexham, but also now with Birmingham as well. You've got owners where their profile is so high that they attract the better sponsors, not the club. And I think Wrexham's good to highlight because Ryan Reynolds has done it outside of football too. He he bought a stake in Mint Mobile and he did the adverts for them, and that got really popular. A lot of people signed up to Mint Mobile. The value of that company increased a ton, and he's gone and sold that business for an absolute metric ton of money. And of course, he didn't have a huge stake in the company. I think it might have been as much as 50%, but I don't think he was ever majority owner. I think he was always minority. But he's got them from being a good mid-sized phone company to one of the biggest independents that just got bought up by one of the bigs for huge money and probably double or triple the value of the company when he invested. So he did the same with his gin company. I think Aviation Gin, I think it is, isn't it? I think I'm right. I might be wrong. Correct me if I am wrong. But I do believe, he partnered with someone and, he starts doing adverts for that and starts promoting it and builds the brand. And that's been bought out for huge money. He's pocketed that money. And directly, you can funnel some of that into Wrexham for sure. But they've got a Netflix documentary, Welcome to Wrexham, which is fantastic. I love watching it, and I love the fact that this Welsh club that was like treated worse than even us at our low point was only just worse as to what Wrexham have gone through. Both of us have really suffered. Um, and I've got that empathy. That's why I like Sunderland and their story. And you know, I think it's really nice that they can do that and they can fund that money. But that TV series is bringing eyeballs and new fans, and you're selling more merch places. You're kind of getting the name out there. People know Wrexham. They see the badge. They see the shirts. They watch week in, week out. That aren't even football fans. And you've got big American companies now that want to come over and sponsor, and people like United are looking at it, and like they become the shirt sponsors, and probably paying more than Wrexham have ever had as a shirt sponsor. And that's kind of through Rob and Ryan, and Ryan, I highlight because he's the one that's been doing it in his business life too, and making that money. And yes, they are spending big, and they're not overreaching. And he's earned his money through his films, but he's also earned a lot more money, I feel, through these little business deals he's been doing. And he probably is going to keep doing because it'll probably keep working. As long as you've got a good product and you're not trying to just pump and dump, I think it'll keep getting to the point where people want to give you more money than you paid for it. So I think that's sustainable. So you can have a football club under your bankroll, which is a losing venture. Nobody makes a profit owning a football club. It just doesn't happen. And most teams lose tens of millions in League One and lower end of the Championship. You lose like 10 million. And our Swansea in the mid-table of the Championship have been losing 15 or 20 every season. God only knows what teams overspending and getting the parachute payments would be losing without those parachute payments. And in the Premier League, you get a ton of TV money. And yet, still teams from the top to the bottom are either really close or are failing PSR or are having to sell the club's hotel and women's team to other entities to kind of get round them, or have 115 charges, or have lost 6 points deduction or 4 points deduction. And like, it's just happening all over when they can lose 37 million a season, pretty much. I think it's 105. No, I think it's 105 million loss over 3 years, not including facilities and some other stuff. You lose a ton of money owning a football club. And he can afford to do it. And not only that, but he's making the club a hell of a lot more sustainable with his star power than before. And they're kind of overspending for the levels they're at, just in terms of players they're buying at each level. But they're doing it right, and they're doing it with a good manager who's kind of proven at a much higher level than he went to. And now he's kind of back up to the level you'd expect Phil Parkinson to be at, like a championship club, maybe lower end Premier League club. You wouldn't be surprised to see him managing there. But he goes all the way down to the National League with them to kind of get them up on this journey. And I think that's a fascinating story in a fascinating way. But they're bringing in a ton of money and spending a ton of money and doing it in a good way because they're leveraging their assets very well. Birmingham, slightly less scale, but they're also doing it. They both come up from League One. They're both now in the Championship. I think that's going to be fascinating to watch over the season too. So you got the relegated trio, Southampton. Should be good. Should. I'm not exactly convinced with them. They're probably going to go back to the style of play that they played when they went up, but it's not been the best of starts. It's not been the worst of starts by any means. Ipswich have had a pretty dire start too, but they should be okay. Expect those to rebound back from bad starts. Leicester are doing okay. Coventry have gotten 3 or 4 players off us actually, and they've already had a good squad and bought well elsewhere. They've had a couple of good freebies from us. So, yeah, another club has had a tough time and it's coming good, and so I got a little bit of empathy and a little bit of love for clubs in those situations. So they're doing well early on. Middlesbrough, who beat Swansea in a tight game, I don't think there was much in it. I don't think anyone would have been surprised if that was a draw. But they're the only 100% team in the Championship right now, 4 from 4. I like a couple of those players, and I've always liked Dale Fry and Hayden Hackney, and Who do they have up front? They used to have someone up front. I can't remember his name now. I don't think he's there anymore. But anyway, they've always had players I like, but they always seem to be a Neely team. This could be their season. So you've got those teams. You've got Bristol City who have sold well and replaced well over the last couple of years. Like Alex Scott, they sold into Bournemouth, I believe, for decent money. I think that's going to be really interesting to see if they can keep doing that to make themselves sustainable and relevant. But they could be up near the playoffs. They've started off well. Norwich should be probably higher than they are. Watford have always been run well. They're not having a great time. But yeah, I think Sheffield United as well is a surprise for me. Well, one of the teams that beat them this year kind of felt really good about it. I know they're one goal in 4 games, 4 defeats out of 4. I'm not sure I feel as good about that as I did when we actually beat them. But yeah, if you can see some of these teams in the middle, like I say, Wrexham, Southampton, Millwall, Watford, Norwich, Birmingham, like if they start pushing even higher and picking up points, and the top 6 kind of probably are going to be fighting for the top, which is Middlesbrough, West Brom, Stoke, Leicester, Coventry, and Bristol City. They're all going to be in and around the playoff battle. You've got 5 or 6 names from mid-table going to be fighting for playoffs. And Swansea currently sit 7, 2 wins, draw and a loss. I think it's very interesting because 2 of the teams coming up, I do think can get into the playoffs because of that unique ownership and that leverage that they have that other teams don't. And that's Birmingham and that's Wrexham. We haven't had anyone up like that in the Premier League for an absolute age. And that gulf is so big. But those 2 have bridged the gap up to the Championship really well early on. And I got a feeling they could kick on. That could be a really interesting story over the course of the season. But yeah, gone are the days when a team like Stoke came up and their unique style of play and their long throws and Tony Pulis at the helm, like yeah, they leveraged something that nobody else had. Swansea, we came up, we kind of would have a little bit like Brighton before Brighton were doing it, where we were really good at picking up players from Spain and from the Netherlands, especially. We got a couple of really good Dutch players, a couple of goalies, a couple of centre mids, wingers. Like, we really recruited well. And our Spaniards were the core of the team, and we always got those good but not great players, those flawed players. Like a Leon Britton who's too small for other clubs, but he's not too small for us. The size of the fight in the dog is humongous. Technical ability, interceptions, breaking up passages of opposition possession, tracking back, and passing from deep. He was amazing for us. Started as a winger too, like a 5'4", 5'5" winger. Worked his way back into our best defensive midfielder for a hell of a long time. And only Joe Allen could probably enter that conversation. So we did really well with players like that over the years. And then Premier League winner Nathan Dyer, who was on loan from us at Leicester when Leicester miraculously won the Premier League. So fair play to him. Yeah, we've always had players like that. We've been good places to go on loan. Frank Lampard came on loan, got his first ever goal with Swansea. I think he only played 7 games, but he came and scored. And then players like Rhian Brewster, his career's kind of gone downhill. I think he scored today for Derby. They're not doing well, but he scored today. Like, he was good for us. Scott Sinclair before Man City ruined him. Wilfred Bonney before Man City ruined him. There seems to be a pattern. But yeah, just picking up these players on loan or from abroad, from leagues that were overlooked at times. Ankel Rankel, great right back. Michu, like just what could have been if he hadn't have got injured. Peribode, what could have been if he hadn't been injured. By God, he was a what a midfielder. What a midfielder he could have been. Honestly, I do think in League One for us, he probably should have been in a title challenger in the championship. That's the level he should have been. And as he was coming good with us, terrible career-ending knee injury, sadly. But potentially like Champions League quality player for sure. Just yeah, so young, so gifted, so tenacious, fearless. Thunderbolt of a shot from the halfway line that would be like a 30-yard screamer from other people. You do it from 50 yards. Just oh, what could have been these flawed players that we make the most out of. Um, yeah, good old days indeed. But I see a lot of other teams now starting to pick up on those and leveraging those same markets and those same things. So, like I say, there's a few in the Premier League which are really interesting to me, and I think those stories will develop over time. There's a few in the Championship that will continue to develop and rise teams above where you normally think they'd go, especially having just come up, like Wrexham and Birmingham. So, yeah, let me know what you think then. Any teams that you want me to highlight in a follow-up, any questions you've got, like I'll be happy to answer them. Any players you want me to look at and kind of see. But I think maybe not every week, but every few weeks, as something kind of happens, either with Swansea or like a huge transfer, I might do a small follow-up to this on deadline day and kind of recap any my favorite thing that happened on deadline day, if there is anything that happens. And if there's not, my thoughts as to why and how that may affect things for certain clubs involved in certain expected transfers. Um, yeah, anything like that I might make an update on, but anything in general with Swansea, the Championship and Premier League or Champions League, I might check in every few weeks, and if something happens in those kind of competitions, I might just do a little roundups. My thought, I kind of want to start doing a bit more of this because it's something I think about a lot, and it's what I do when I play Football Manager. Um, and kind of learning from different teams, different managers, tactically and transfer wise, I think is why I'm able to overachieve in Football Manager so much, as well as over the years understanding Football Manager as a game and being able to really gamify my approach to it. I think it's very interesting. So I've got that outlet for football, but I do like to talk about it, and I don't like people. So I don't have many people IRL to talk to quite a lot, and I don't really want to go find people. So there's you guys, and I know a lot of people know me from Football Manager, and even those that know me from Starters Orders. Great horse racing game, kind of Football Manager of horse racing games. If you're interested, playlists are available on the channel, as well as the Football Manager saves where we're being utterly disrespectful with Swansea, and so much has been recorded ahead of time, and oh my God, where we're going, you will not believe. Because I don't believe it, but yeah, I kind of want to also talk about Football Manager and have a conversation with you guys in the comment section, and I want you to challenge my thoughts. I want you to ask me the questions. I want you to kind of call bullshit on what I'm saying and tell me why, and I want that discourse, but also I always want to learn more. And if I'm wrong and I don't know I'm wrong, I'd like to know it, but I'd also like to know why I'm wrong. And then I'll see if I agree with that or not. And if I do agree with it, then I've learned something. And I do feel I teach people a lot. And so I need as much information in so I can give out the right information to people. Um, in general. So yeah, I do like to talk about football a lot. So I think little updates here and there, infrequently, every month, 2 months maybe, probably would suit. So let me know what you think. Comment section down below. Who's your favorite team? What's your team's biggest storyline? And do you have a say on big storylines outside of your team? The Palace Forest. Who should be in Europe in which competition? Question. Man City's 115 charges. Why the fuck don't we have an answer? Time is ticking. Jesus, let put that one to bed. Everton going through their points deduction and all that stuff, and like, yeah, that seemed unfair at one point, and then their ownership scandals that's been going on, though, that's finally maybe sorted, and the stadium, the issues they were having there, and then they've got the stadium, now they're calling it the Hill Dickinson Stadium. I like Bramley more. I don't know. I'm hearing a lot of Everton fans just calling it the Dock Stadium. Nothing wrong with that either. Like, just, yeah. Like, do you have a say on that? I know I've got someone who does watch my videos a fair amount who is an Everton fan, so maybe maybe you've got a say on that one. But I'd love to hear your opinion on that things and your input on your clubs. And even if they're not your clubs, like I say, David Moyes going to Everton, I think Everton's a fascinating club for all these reasons right now. Um, and that's about add Grealish in. Like, it's a fascinating thing. In fact, the two most fascinating stories in the Premier League for me are Liverpool and Everton, which is really interesting, really interesting to me that it's both over there. So, yeah, do you believe Arsenal have got the striker? Do you like Gyökeres? Even if you're not an Arsenal fan, are you an Arsenal fan? You like him? You dislike him? And why? Like, how's he changed things? What's going on at United from United's fans' perspective and from outside, from rival fans' perspectives? Like, love to hear more of your feedback. I'm watching so much content on YouTube with so many fan reactions. I think, yeah, there's a bunch of them, and there's a bunch of good like shows like The Overlap and the fan debates and all that. And but there's definitely different creators for um different clubs. I've been watching and getting like their their perspective on things, and that's been really interesting. But I want to do it with people I pseudo know in my comment section too, and have a more direct communication with you and figure this out. So let me know, like League One, League Two, National League, non-league, foreign clubs, foreign competition. Like, I don't care. Have your say on something. Ask me a question about something, and if I don't know about it, I'm gonna go research it, and I'm gonna come back to you with something that I think is worthwhile talking about. So let me know. Hashtag United. Any fans as well out there? Don't forget, hashtag it. I mean, that's a fascinating story to me, and I love the fact you get to see behind the scenes more with Spencer being able to be brutally honest on how at some level he's probably gonna have to sell the club or sell majority ownership just because of how much money it takes to run the club where it is, and they're possibly like a couple of promotions away from, well, first being like National League North South, but also being beyond this the level of financial support he can provide. And maybe that grows with the club a little bit, but probably not. And why extra investment is important, why he's trying to get the fans as investors, and why he's trying to build things a certain way. And you really are seeing the building of a club through, a decade and beyond now. We're starting to look, okay, what's that second decade look like? What maybe even that third decade might look like? And him talking about if you ever got to League Two and how much money you're going to lose per year in League Two, and then how much it costs to run a club in League One and into the Championship, and then to get to the Premier League, it could be as much as 200 million in investment, and he ain't got any of that. I think that's fascinating too. So if you've got an input on that, even if you don't like the name hashtag, you're more of a traditional, let me know. I want to talk about football. I want to talk about ice hockey, NHL. I want to talk about NFL. This is mainly about football, but I want to talk about those. I don't mind talking about tennis. Basketball, take it or leave it. Cricket, take it or leave it. Rugby, take it or leave it. Which isn't helped by the fact that all the Welsh clubs are in a really bad state because the Welsh Rugby Union has mismanaged for years and doesn't seem to want to modernise and merchandise enough to sustain the future of Welsh rugby. And you've only got to look at cricket to realise what they could be doing, because cricket kind of on a decline for a long time, and then we had 2020. Just had this, not the year, but you had 20 overs to play, and you condensed the game and you made it more spirited, and included that factor into it, whereas there was a bit more pressure on the players to actually do something and not just wait for the perfect ball, not grind it out, not get a 3-day draw for a rain delay, and just, kill me now. But, you get to that point where it really is that exciting level of cricket again. And now they've come up with 100. You can only bowl 100 balls. Again, and it's bright uniforms and fun names, and like they're really attracting a different audience, and they're modernizing. They're getting sponsorship deals. They're getting all these things out there. English rugby, French rugby did really well with that. Welsh rugby, didn't do anything. Didn't want to go pro, wanted to stay amateur. Then wanted, a lot of teams couldn't afford really to operate, so they condensed down into 7 regions. I think, are we at 5 regions now? It feels like it. I'm not sure if we are, but there's also talk of regions merging with each other now further, and it just seems weird. So, yeah, apart from that side, I don't really want to talk about rugby union. Rugby league, I don't know enough about to really have an opinion. It's not my favourite sport to watch. But as bad and as insular as that rugby union is, I think it's still better than the Welsh Rugby Union. Which is sad to say, the birthplace of rugby. And god damn it, it's a national sport. And the people in control of the national game are killing it. Not in a good way. So yeah, I don't mind talking about that other sports, Olympics. I'm a fan of sports in general, even if I don't like the sport or know enough about the sport. Educate me, ask me questions, I'll go research, we'll have a discussion. So comment section down below, what do you want to see me talk about? Because I'm going to be here playing games. I'm going to put starters orders up. Tennis Manager, I had a big issue with the game, and so that's on hiatus. I might come back to that, I don't know. Out of the Park Baseball, I might start playing, but it's up to you if you want to see it. Franchise Hockey Manager, again, the new game will probably come out for that fairly soon. Like, when that comes out, do you want to see that or not? I might be playing it anyway. Football Manager, of course, I'm going to be playing all those. And so you're going to see videos of those, videos of other things. Crusader Kings 3, I really enjoyed the little mini-series I had. And I've had another couple that I've tried to do, but YouTube didn't like one of them, and OBS really didn't want to record the other ones. We had a ton of problems. Yeah, that's sad. But like that will go out. Europa Universalis, I might get back into. So let me know kind of what you want to see game-wise, but also just like I want to do these videos where I sit down and talk to you and have a conversation with you. So let me know what topics you think would be fun to explore and talk about. Your clubs, other sports. Hit me up, let me know. In the meantime, I've been Chris. This has been interesting. It's been a long video. If you're still here, let me know. Just say Jack in the comment section. And I know you've made it right to the end of the video, but yeah. I'll see you next time. Till then, take care, stay safe, and all the very best to you. Until we meet again, my friends. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much. See you soon.